The championship medal gleamed on Maya Kim's chest as she scanned the dojo, her voice cutting through the evening air. Who wants to test themselves against a national champion? When her gaze locked onto the quiet, single father in worn sneakers sitting in the corner, the entire room held its breath. Daniel Cross hadn't come here to fight. He'd only wanted his daughter to feel less alone. But as Maya's challenge echoed through the silence, something shifted in his weathered eyes. What happened next would shatter every assumption about strength, honor, and the price of true mastery. Stay with me until the end of this incredible story and drop a comment about which city you're watching from. I'd love to see how far this tale of unexpected courage has traveled. The evening sun cast long shadows through the windows of Kim's Elite Taekwondo Academy, painting golden stripes across the polished wooden floor where 30 students had gathered for what they thought would be another routine Thursday training session. The air hung thick with the mingled scents of rubber mats and determination, that particular atmosphere unique to places where people push their bodies to the limit. Maya Kim stood at the center of it all, her black belt wrapped twice around her narrow waist, the gold embroidery catching the light as she moved with the fluid grace of someone who had spent more hours in a dojo than most people spend sleeping. At 28, Maya had already accomplished what most martial artists only dream of: 3 national championships, 2 international silver medals, and a reputation that preceded her into every competition hall she entered. Her students, ranging from eager 8-year-olds to ambitious college athletes, regarded her with the kind of reverence typically reserved for celebrities or saints. She had built this academy from nothing, transforming a defunct warehouse on the outskirts of Cincinnati into a temple of discipline and excellence. "Excellence isn't just about winning," Maya announced to the assembled class, her voice carrying the authority of someone who had earned the right to define such terms. "It's about constantly testing yourself, pushing beyond what you think you're capable of." She paused, letting her dark eyes sweep across the faces before her. Some were familiar students who had been with her since the academy opened 3 years ago. Others were newer, still finding their footing in this world of controlled violence and ancient philosophy. In the back corner, trying to make himself as inconspicuous as possible, sat Daniel Cross. At 35, he carried himself with the particular kind of stillness that comes not from peace, but from having seen too much chaos. His hands, calloused and scarred, rested on his knees as he watched his daughter Lily practice her basic forms with the beginners group. The 7-year-old's face was scrunched in concentration, her small fists cutting through the air with more enthusiasm than precision. Daniel hadn't wanted to come. The very idea of a martial arts studio made his skin crawl in ways he couldn't quite articulate even to himself. But Lily's therapist had suggested it might help with her anxiety, the persistent shadow that had followed her since her mother's death 2 years ago. Physical activity, structured environment, sense of community, the therapist had said, checking off boxes on an invisible list of things that might help a grieving child find her footing again. So here he was, every Tuesday and Thursday, sitting on the uncomfortable wooden bench reserved for parents, wearing his paint-stained jeans and faded work boots that seemed almost blasphemous in this temple of athletic wear and bare feet. He worked construction during the day, his body already aching by the time he picked Lily up from after-school care and drove her here. The other parents, mostly mothers in yoga pants and fathers in business casual, gave him polite nods but kept their distance as if poverty might be contagious. Tonight, Maya continued, her voice rising with excitement. "I want to demonstrate something important about real combat versus sport fighting." She had been building to this moment for weeks, planning a demonstration that would show her students the difference between tournament sparring and actual self-defense. "I need a volunteer from the audience, someone who hasn't trained extensively in Taekwondo." A ripple of nervous laughter went through the crowd. The students knew better than to volunteer. They had all felt the controlled but undeniable power of Maya's techniques. The parents shifted uncomfortably, suddenly fascinated by their phones or the motivational posters lining the walls. Maya's gaze swept the room like a searchlight past the eager faces of her advanced students, past the cluster of soccer moms comparing schedules until it landed on the solitary figure in the corner. Daniel felt her attention like a physical weight, his shoulders tensing involuntarily. "You," she said, pointing directly at him. "Sir, in the work boots. Would you mind helping me with a demonstration?" The dojo fell silent. Every head turned to look at Daniel, who remained perfectly still, as if hoping that complete immobility might render him invisible. Lily had stopped mid-form, her eyes wide, as she stared at her father. "I'm just here to watch my daughter," Daniel said quietly, his voice rough from disuse. He rarely spoke at these sessions, content to be a shadow on the periphery of this bright, ambitious world. "Come on," Maya encouraged, her smile confident and slightly predatory. "I promise I'll go easy on you. It's just to show the class how someone without training might react in a real situation. Completely safe, all controlled." Some of the teenagers snickered. Brad Patterson, the Academy's star student and Maya's assistant instructor, couldn't suppress his grin. "This should be interesting," he whispered to his training partner loud enough for others to hear. The construction worker versus the champion, it was like something out of a bad movie, except the ending was already written. Daniel's jaw tightened. He could feel Lily watching him, could sense her small body tense with worry. She had inherited her mother's anxiety magnified by loss, and he knew she was already imagining the worst, her father humiliated. Hurt made small in front of everyone. He had sworn to himself that he would never let her see him as anything less than strong, capable, unbreakable. It was the only thing he had left to give her. "Dad doesn't know Taekwondo," Lily said suddenly, her voice high and defensive. "He builds houses." More laughter quickly stifled, but unmistakably there. Maya's smile softened slightly. "That's exactly why he's perfect for this demonstration. Sometimes in real life, we face opponents who don't follow the rules we're used to. Street fights aren't like tournaments." Daniel stood slowly, his movements deliberate and careful. Every instinct screamed at him to refuse to sit back down, to maintain the careful anonymity he had cultivated since returning from Afghanistan 4 years ago. But Lily was watching, and worse, the other kids were watching Lily. He had seen the way some of them looked at her, the girl with the dead mother, and the father who showed up in dirty clothes. He couldn't give them more ammunition. "All right," he said the word heavy with resignation. As he walked toward the mat, he caught his reflection in the floor-to-ceiling mirrors that lined one wall. He looked exactly like what he was pretending to be, a tired construction worker, shoulders slightly hunched, hands hanging loose at his sides. No one would guess that those hands had once held an M4 rifle with the same ease that Maya held her championship trophies. No one would imagine that he had earned a Bronze Star for actions he still couldn't talk about, not even to the VA therapist who kept insisting that talking would help. "Take off your boots, please," Maya instructed already, in her fighting stance, weight balanced on the balls of her feet. Daniel complied, revealing white socks that had seen better days. One had a hole near the big toe. Someone giggled quickly, hushed, but the sound carried. He stepped onto the mat, the surface cool beneath his feet. "Have you had any martial arts training at all?" Maya asked loud enough for the class to hear. "No, ma'am," Daniel lied smoothly. It wasn't entirely false. He had never studied Taekwondo specifically. The Marine Corps martial arts program was something different, entirely less art, more survival. And the things he had learned in Kandahar and Helmand province, in places whose names he tried to forget, those weren't martial arts at all. Those were just ways to keep breathing when others were trying to make you stop. "Perfect," Maya said. "Now I want everyone to watch carefully. I'm going to attack slowly at first, showing how an untrained person typically reacts, flinching, turning away, raising their hands defensively without purpose." She addressed the class but kept her eyes on Daniel. "Sir, just do what feels natural. Don't worry about looking foolish. That's the whole point." She began with a simple front kick, telegraphed and slow. Daniel's body wanted to react, muscle memory screaming at him to block to counter, to end this before it began. Instead, he stumbled backward, raising his hands awkwardly, playing the part of the hapless civilian. The class nodded knowingly. This was exactly what they expected. "You see," Maya said, not even breathing hard. "No training, no instinct for proper defense. Now let me show you what happens when I increase the speed." Her next kick came faster, a roundhouse aimed at his ribs. Daniel let it connect, grunting as he absorbed the impact, allowing his body to fold slightly. It stung, but he had felt worse. Much worse. The memories threatened to surface: the IED that had taken Rodriguez, the ambush that had left him with 17 stitches across his back, but he pushed them down, focusing on the present. "Are you all right?" Maya asked, a hint of concern creeping into her professional demeanor. I'm fine, Daniel said, straightening. Is that all? Something flickered in Maya's eyes. Pride, perhaps, or irritation at his tone. The parents were watching with a mixture of sympathy and secondhand embarrassment. The students were riveted, some recording on their phones, despite the academy's no filming policy during classes. Let's try something more realistic, Maya said, her voice taking on an edge. A real attacker won't stop after 1 or 2 strikes. They'll keep coming. She shifted her stance, lowering her center of gravity. Try to defend yourself however you can. What followed was supposed to be a controlled demonstration of superior technique, overwhelming untrained instinct. Maya launched into a combination jab cross-knee strike, moving with the fluid precision that had won her championships. But something was wrong. The construction worker was moving differently now, not with the panic of an amateur, but with an economy of motion that seemed almost lazy. He didn't block her strikes so much as redirect them, using minimal effort to turn her power away from vital areas. Maya increased her speed, her techniques becoming sharper, more serious. The atmosphere in the dojo shifted, electric tension replacing casual interest. This wasn't going according to script. Daniel continued to give ground, but it was controlled retreat tactical rather than panicked. His breathing remained steady, his eyes never leaving hers. Interesting, Maya muttered loud enough for only Daniel to hear. You're a natural. She spun into a jumping back kick, a technique that had won her the Nationals 2 years running. It was beautiful, perfect form, the kind of move that ended up on highlight reels. Daniel saw it coming, saw it in the subtle shift of her shoulders, the way her weight transferred the slight tell in her eyes that preceded every committed attack. Time seemed to slow the way it always had in combat, the world narrowing to essential information, threat, angle, response. He had options. He could sidestep, let her sail past, maintain the charade. He could take the hit, let her have her victory, go back to his bench and his anonymity. But as the kick arced toward him, he saw Lily in his peripheral vision, her small hands pressed against her mouth, her entire body rigid with fear for him. And behind her, Brad Patterson was smirking, already composing the story he would tell how the poor kid's construction worker dad got destroyed by their sensei. Daniel moved. It wasn't flashy or elaborate. He stepped inside the kick's arc, his hand coming up to catch Maya's ankle, while his other hand supported her calf, controlling the limb without hurting her. Using her own momentum, he guided her past him, then swept her supporting leg with a gentle but precise movement of his foot. Maya hit the mat with a controlled fall, more surprised than hurt, but unmistakably on her back with Daniel standing over her. The dojo erupted. Holy shit! Someone yelled, one of the teenagers, immediately hushed by his mortified parent. Did you see that? How did he? Is she okay? Daniel stepped back immediately, offering his hand to help Maya up. She stared at him for a long moment, her dark eyes reassessing everything she thought she knew about the quiet man who sat in the corner twice a week. She took his hand and he pulled her to her feet with careful strength. Where did you learn that? She asked quietly, her voice a mixture of embarrassment and genuine curiosity. Lucky instinct, I guess, Daniel said, already moving back toward his shoes. Sorry if I... No, Maya interrupted louder now, addressing the entire class while keeping her eyes on Daniel. That was educational. She was struggling to regain her composure, her teaching persona warring with competitive pride. Sometimes we encounter people who have natural ability or perhaps unconventional training. Daniel was already sitting back down, pulling on his boots, trying to shrink back into invisibility. But it was too late. Every eye in the dojo was on him, seeing him clearly for perhaps the first time. The other parents were whispering among themselves, their previous dismissal replaced by wary interest. The students were buzzing with excitement, some replaying the takedown on their phones, having filmed despite the rules. Lily ran to him, throwing her small arms around his waist. Dad, that was amazing, she whispered, her voice a mixture of relief and pride. You beat Ms. Kim. I didn't beat anyone, Daniel said quietly, running his hand through her hair. It was just a demonstration. But Maya hadn't moved from the center of the mat. She was watching them, father and daughter, and something in her expression had shifted from professional interest to something deeper, more personal. She had been taken down before in tournaments and training countless times over her career, but never like this. Never by someone who moved with such controlled violence, such careful restraint. There had been a moment, just a fraction of a second, where she had felt how easily he could have hurt her if he had chosen to. The realization was both terrifying and oddly thrilling. "Class," she announced, her voice cutting through the chatter. "Let's take a 5-minute water break. Then we'll continue with our regular training." The students dispersed reluctantly, gathering in small groups to dissect what they had just witnessed. Brad Patterson looked particularly put out, his status as the Academy's alpha student suddenly questionable. If a random parent could take down their sensei, what did that say about everything they thought they knew about fighting? Maya walked over to Daniel, who was trying very hard to pretend he was invisible, while Lily chattered excitedly beside him. "We need to talk," she said quietly. "No, we don't," Daniel replied, not looking at her. "You've had training, extensive training." "I told you I haven't studied Taekwondo." "That wasn't Taekwondo." Maya's voice was low and tense. "That was something else." "Military?" Daniel's jaw tightened. "I should take Lily home. It's getting late." "Dad has to work early tomorrow," Lily added helpfully. "He's building a house for a family whose house burned down. He's doing it for less money because they're sad." Maya's expression softened slightly. "That's very kind of him." She studied Daniel more carefully, now noting things she had overlooked before, the way he held himself, always balanced, always ready, the small scars on his hands that didn't come from construction work, the 1,000-yard stare that sometimes crept into his eyes when he thought no one was watching. "Marines," she guessed quietly. Daniel stood abruptly. "Come on, Lily, get your things." "But class isn't over." "Get your things." As Lily ran to collect her gear bag, Maya stepped closer to Daniel. "I'm sorry if I pushed too hard. I didn't mean to—" "You didn't do anything wrong," Daniel said, his voice flat. "You were teaching your class. I should have just stayed down." "Why didn't you—" Daniel looked at her, then really looked at her, and Maya saw something in his eyes that made her step back. It wasn't anger or aggression. It was exhaustion, the bone-deep weariness of someone who had been fighting for so long they didn't know how to stop. "Because my daughter was watching," he said simply. "And she's seen enough people she loves stay down." Before Maya could respond, Lily returned her gear bag, bouncing against her leg. "Can we come back on Tuesday?" she asked anxiously. "I promise Dad won't interrupt again." "You're always welcome here," Maya said, directing her answer to both of them. "Both of you." Daniel nodded stiffly and guided Lily toward the door. As they walked past the groups of still whispering students and parents, he heard fragments of conversation. Looked military. Never would have guessed. Think he could teach. Outside, the evening air was cool against his flushed skin. Lily held his hand as they walked to his battered pickup truck, practically vibrating with excitement. "Dad, you were like a superhero," she exclaimed. "Like Captain America or—" "I'm not a superhero, baby," Daniel said gently. "I just got lucky." "But you knew exactly what to do." "You were so fast and Ms." Kim looked so surprised. She paused, then added more quietly, "I was scared she was going to hurt you." Daniel stopped kneeling down to look his daughter in the eye. "Hey, you don't ever have to worry about me getting hurt. Okay, I'm tougher than I look." "I know," Lily said, but her voice was uncertain. She had said the same thing about her mother once upon a time. Cancer didn't care how tough someone looked. As they drove home through the darkening streets of Cincinnati, Daniel's phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. He ignored it until they reached a red light, then glanced at the screen. "I know you're more than you seem. If you ever want to talk, really talk, I'm here. Also, I could use an assistant instructor who actually knows how to fight." Maya. He deleted the message without responding. At home, their small rental house felt even smaller after the spacious dojo. Daniel made Lily dinner, mac and cheese with hot dogs cut up in it. Her favorite, while she recounted the evening's events in elaborate detail, adding flourishes that hadn't actually happened. "And then you moved like whoosh, and Ms. Kim was like, ah, and everyone was like, what?" She gestured wildly with her fork, sending a piece of hot dog flying across the kitchen. "Eat your dinner and stop making sound effects," Daniel said. but he was smiling despite himself. Later, after Lily was asleep, her worn stuffed rabbit clutched against her chest. Daniel sat on the front porch with a beer he wouldn't drink. The label was already peeling from the condensation, his fingers working at it absently, a nervous habit he couldn't shake. He thought about the moment on the mat, the split second when his body had betrayed years of careful camouflage. Maya's ankle in his hand, the weight of her, the ease with which he could have broken her. The knowledge sat heavy in his chest, another secret to add to the collection that woke him at 3 a.m. most nights. His phone buzzed again. Another text from Maya. Your daughter told me you were in the military. I have a brother who served. I understand if you don't want to talk about it, but the offer stands assistant instructor position. Paid. Think about it. Daniel almost laughed. If she knew what he had really done, the things that had earned him that Bronze Star, she wouldn't want him within 100 yards of her students. Heroes in war movies saved people, protected innocents, came home whole. Real war was messier, uglier, full of impossible choices and collateral damage that followed you home like smoke that never quite washed out of your clothes. A car drove by, bass thumping from its speakers, and Daniel's hand moved to his hip, reaching for a weapon that wasn't there, hadn't been there for 4 years. He forced himself to relax, to breathe, to remember that he was in Ohio, not Afghanistan, that the sound was music, not incoming fire. Inside, Lily coughed in her sleep, and he went to check on her. She had kicked off her blankets again, her small face peaceful in the glow of her nightlight. He covered her back up, kissed her forehead gently. She was why he had come back, why he had survived when Rodriguez and Patterson and the others hadn't. She was why he worked construction until his hands bled, why he sat on uncomfortable benches in dojos, why he pretended to be nothing more than what he appeared to be. But tonight, for just a moment, he had let the mask slip, and someone had seen what was underneath. His phone buzzed once more. This time it wasn't Maya. It was a number he recognized, one that made his blood run cold. Colonel Harrison, retired now, working for a private military contractor that had been trying to recruit him for 2 years. Saw an interesting video online. You still got it, Cross. The offer's still on the table. Money's better than ever. Think about your girl's future. Daniel deleted this message too, but his hands were shaking now. He went to the kitchen, poured the beer down the sink, watched the foam swirl away. Outside, a dog barked, and someone's TV played too loud through thin walls. Normal sounds of a normal neighborhood where normal people lived normal lives. He thought about Maya's offer. Assistant instructor. It was dangerous putting himself in a position where he would have to use those skills again, even in a controlled environment. But it was also money. Real money, not the uncertain income of construction work that dried up every winter. Money for Lily's college fund, for better health insurance, for maybe moving to a house where she could have her own room instead of sleeping in what was supposed to be a dining room. More than that, though, he thought about the way she had looked at him tonight, not with fear or pity or the careful distance that most people maintained once they sensed what he was. Maya had looked at him with recognition, one fighter to another, and there had been respect in her eyes. He pulled up her texts, stared at them for a long moment, then typed a response. I'll think about it. Her reply was immediate, as if she had been waiting. Tuesday after regular class. We can talk. And Daniel, thank you for trusting me enough to show me who you really are. He wanted to tell her that she was wrong, that she hadn't seen who he really was, that the man who had taken her down on that mat was just a shadow of someone who no longer existed. But maybe that was the point. Maybe shadows were all, any of them were casting different shapes depending on the light. In her room, Lily stirred, mumbling something in her sleep. Daniel went to her doorway, watched her for a moment. Tomorrow she would tell everyone at school about tonight, about how her dad had surprised everyone. For once, she would be the kid with the cool story, the one others envied instead of pitied. It was a small gift, but it was something. The weight of the evening settled over him as he prepared for bed in his own room, a cramped space barely big enough for a mattress and a dresser. On the dresser sat a folded flag and a triangle case beneath it, a small wooden box containing medals he never looked at. The Bronze Star was in there along with a Purple Heart and various campaign ribbons that told a story he wished he could forget. He lay down without turning off the light. Darkness was still problematic too. Reminiscent of night operations and the constant threat of attack. Through the thin walls he could hear his neighbors living their lives. television laughter, a couple arguing about bills, a baby crying. Normal problems for normal people. His phone sat on the nightstand silent now, but somehow still demanding attention. Three paths diverging from this moment: Harrison's offer with its promise of good money and familiar demons, Maya's proposition with its dangerous balance between past and present, or the status quo hiding in plain sight, pretending to be just another single father struggling to get by. Sleep, when it finally came, was fitful and full of dreams where he was back in Kandahar. Except now Lily was there, and Maya too, and he had to protect them all from threats that came from every shadow. He woke several times, sweat-soaked and gasping, reaching for his rifle, before remembering where he was. At 3:47 a.m., he gave up on sleep and sat at the kitchen table with a cup of coffee that was more habit than desire. Through the window, the streetlight flickered, casting shifting patterns on the wall. He thought about Maya's second text about her claiming he had shown her who he really was. The truth was more complicated. He had shown her a capability, a skill set, a trained response to physical threat. But that wasn't who he was any more than her championship medals defined her. They were both more than their ability to fight, more than the violence they could inflict or withstand. But in a world that often measured worth by strength, sometimes that capability was all that mattered. As dawn crept across the sky, painting the horizon in shades of gray and pink, Daniel made his decision. He picked up his phone, typed out a simple message. "Tuesday, after class, we'll talk." This time Maya's response wasn't immediate. It came 20 minutes later, just as he was getting ready to wake Lily for school. "Looking forward to it. And Daniel, bring your gear. If you're going to help teach, you need proper equipment. I'll have some waiting for you." Gear. The word sat heavy in his mind, carrying echoes of body armor and tactical vests of weight that protected and constrained in equal measure. But this would be different gear for a different kind of fight. One where no one died, where losses weren't permanent, where violence was contained within rules and respect. Maybe that was what he needed. Not to forget what he had been, but to transform it into something else, something that could exist in Lily's world without bringing shadows. "Dad," Lily's voice came from her doorway, sleepy and confused. "Why are you up?" "Just thinking, baby. Go back to sleep. School's not for another 2 hours." "Were you thinking about Ms. Kim?" There was a teasing note in her voice that made him smile despite everything. "I was thinking about a lot of things." "She's pretty," Lily said, then added quickly. "And she's really good at Taekwondo, except when you beat her." "I didn't beat her, Lily. It was just a demonstration, I know." She patted over to him, climbed into his lap, even though she was getting too big for it. "Dad, are you going to teach at the dojo?" "Maybe. Would that be okay with you?" She was quiet for a moment, her head against his chest, listening to his heartbeat the way she used to when she was smaller and the world was simpler. "I think Mom would like it," she said finally. "She always said you were a hero. Maybe other kids should know that too." Daniel's throat tightened. "I'm not a hero, Lily." "You are to me," she said simply, and then with the devastating honesty of children. "And maybe if you're teaching, you won't look so sad when you're watching." Tuesday arrived with unseasonable warmth, the kind of October day that made Cincinnati feel more like early September. Daniel spent the morning on a roofing job, the physical labor a welcome distraction from the decision he'd made. His crew noticed something different about him. He was quieter than usual, which was saying something, and twice his foreman had to call his name multiple times to get his attention. "You all right, Cross?" Tommy, his work partner, asked during their lunch break. They sat on the half-finished roof, looking out over the suburban sprawl. "You seem somewhere else today." "Just thinking about Lily," Daniel said, which wasn't entirely a lie. "Kid doing okay. I know it's been rough since—" Tommy trailed off the way everyone did when they got close to mentioning Sarah's death. "She's good. Better. Found something she likes." Daniel took a bite of his sandwich, hoping to end the conversation there. But Tommy wasn't done. "My sister saw a video online. Some martial arts thing. Said it looked like you taking down some champion. That true?" Daniel's hand stilled halfway to his mouth. "People see what they want to see." "Come on, man. We've worked together 2 years. You never mentioned you knew martial arts." "I don't. Daniel stood, brushing crumbs from his jeans. Break's over. The afternoon dragged each hour, bringing him closer to the conversation he both dreaded and oddly anticipated. When 5 o'clock finally came, he drove home, showered off the day's sweat and tar, and stared at his closet. What did one wear to discuss becoming something he'd sworn he'd never be again, someone who taught violence, even controlled regulated violence? He settled on clean jeans and a plain black t-shirt, then went to pick up Lily from after-school care. She was practically bouncing when she saw him, her excitement infectious despite his nerves. "Everyone's been talking about it all week," she chattered as they drove. "Marcus said his mom said you must be like a secret agent or something. And Emma asked if you could teach her dad because he's always bragging about knowing karate. But Emma thinks he's lying." "People talk too much," Daniel muttered, but he couldn't help the small smile that tugged at his lips. The dojo parking lot was fuller than usual when they arrived. Word had spread apparently about Thursday's incident. Parents who normally dropped their kids and left were staying to watch, and several new faces had appeared. Daniel recognized the predatory curiosity in their expressions, the same look people got at accident scenes hoping to witness something dramatic. Inside, Maya was leading the intermediate class through forms, her movements precise and powerful. She had pulled her hair back in a tight bun, and there was something different about her energy, sharper, more focused, as if she too had been anticipating this moment. "Dad, there's Ms. Kim," Lily said unnecessarily, waving enthusiastically. Maya nodded in acknowledgement, but didn't break form. Professional, controlled, giving nothing away. But Daniel caught the slight tension in her shoulders, the way her eyes tracked his movement to the usual corner bench. He sat and tried to become invisible while Lily joined her beginners group, but invisibility was impossible now. Parents whispered behind hands, students stole glances, and Brad Patterson watched him with barely concealed hostility. The young man had been Maya's star student, her assistant, the heir apparent to the academy's hierarchy. Now that position was threatened by someone who shouldn't even exist in their ordered world. The regular class proceeded normally, or as normally as possible, with the underlying current of anticipation. Maya ran through techniques with her usual expertise, but Daniel noticed she kept the sparring minimal, nothing that might invite comparison to Thursday's events. Finally, class ended. Parents collected their children, many lingering, clearly hoping for another show. Maya thanked them for coming and firmly indicated that the academy was closing for the evening. Slowly, reluctantly, they filed out. Though Daniel saw several cars remain in the parking lot, their occupants watching through windows. "Lily, go practice your forms in the back room," Maya instructed. "Your dad and I need to discuss adult things." "Adult things are boring," Lily complained, but she complied, taking her water bottle and disappearing through a doorway. Brad Patterson hadn't left. He stood near the weapons display, arms crossed, trying to look casual, but failing. "I should stay," he said. "As assistant instructor, I should be part of any decisions about—" "Thank you, Brad, but this is a private conversation," Maya said firmly. "But, good night, Brad." The dismissal was clear. Brad's face flushed, his eyes darting between Maya and Daniel. For a moment, Daniel thought the young man might argue further, might even challenge him to prove Thursday wasn't a fluke. But Maya's expression brooked no argument, and Brad left, slamming the door harder than necessary. The silence that followed felt heavy, loaded with unspoken questions. Maya walked to a bench against the wall and pulled out a black duffel bag. "I guessed its sizes," she said, unzipping it to reveal a folded dobok, the traditional Taekwondo uniform along with protective gear. "If you're going to help teach, you need to look the part." Daniel didn't move from his spot. "We should talk first about what you think you saw, about what you think I can offer." Maya sat on the bench, her usual confident posture relaxing slightly. "What I saw was someone with combat training trying very hard to hide it. What I saw was control discipline and the kind of reflexes that don't come from sport fighting. And that makes you want me around your students. It makes me curious." She leaned forward, elbows on her knees. "I've trained with a lot of people, Daniel. Sport fighters, MMA guys, even some military contractors who thought they were tough. None of them moved like you did. There was no ego in it, no performance, just efficiency." Daniel almost laughed at that. Efficiency. That's what they'd called it in training too. Maximum effect, minimum effort. Economy of violence, pretty words for ugly necessities. I looked you up, Maya continued. Don't look at me like that. It's 2025, everyone looks everyone up. Daniel Cross honorably discharged Purple Heart Bronze Star with Valor, 2 tours in Afghanistan. The details are classified, but the medals tell a story. Medals don't tell stories, Daniel said quietly. They just mark where stories ended. Maya was quiet for a moment, absorbing that. My brother came back different too. Not bad different, just careful. Like he was always checking exits, always watching shadows. He won't talk about what happened over there, but sometimes I catch him looking at nothing and I know he's somewhere else. Is that supposed to make me feel better? Knowing I'm not the only one who can't let go. It's supposed to make you understand that I'm not asking you to be something you're not. I'm not looking for a war hero to parade around. I just need someone who actually understands that fighting isn't about trophies and rankings. Daniel stood paced to the window. Outside the parking lot, lights had come on, casting pools of yellow in the gathering dusk. 2 cars still sat there, waiting, watching. Your students don't need to know what real fighting is, he said. They need to believe in the sport and the rules and the idea that violence can be contained and controlled. They need to believe that fighting is about points and medals and honor. Some of them need more than that. Maya's voice was steady, insistent. I've got kids here who are being bullied. Women who want to feel safe walking to their cars. Teenagers who live in neighborhoods where the rules don't always apply. They need someone who can teach them the difference between sport and survival. And you think I'm that person. You don't know anything about me beyond a 2-minute interaction and some internet search results. I know you didn't hurt me when you could have. I know you measured exactly how much force to use to put me down without causing damage. That kind of control doesn't come from rage or brutality. It comes from discipline. Daniel turned to face her. It comes from practice, from doing it over and over until it becomes automatic. Do you really want someone teaching your students who's practiced violence until it's as natural as breathing? I want someone teaching them who understands the weight of it, who won't fill their heads with action movie fantasies. Maya stood, moved closer to him. Look, I've built something good here. These kids, they trust me. Their parents trust me. But Thursday night, you showed me a gap in what I can offer them. I teach sport. You could teach survival. I didn't come back to teach anyone how to fight. Then why did you come back? The question hung between them, heavier than it should have been. Daniel thought of all the reasons Lily needed stability. Sarah's family was here, the job market was decent. But underneath those practical explanations was a simpler truth: he'd come back because he didn't know how to go forward. My daughter loves it here, he said finally. She's happier than she's been since her mom died. If helping out here keeps that smile on her face, then I'll do it. But there are conditions. Maya nodded, waiting. No questions about my service. No war stories for the students. No social media posts about the veteran instructor. I'm just Daniel Lily's dad who happens to know some self-defense. That's it. Agreed. And if I say something's too dangerous, too real, we don't teach it. There are things these kids don't need to know how to do. Of course. And Lily doesn't pay for classes anymore. If I'm working, she trains free. Maya smiled slightly. I was already planning that. Anything else? Daniel looked at the uniform in the bag. It was black like Maya's, with a blank space where patches and badges would normally go. No rank, no history, just fabric. I won't wear a belt, he said. Everyone wears a belt. It's part of no belt. I'm not part of your ranking system. I'm not working toward anything. I'm just here to help. Maya considered this. The parents will ask questions. The students won't understand. Then tell them the truth. I'm not a Taekwondo practitioner. I'm just someone helping with self-defense training. Fine. No belt. She pulled something else from the bag, a simple black shirt with instructor printed on the back. Will you at least wear this so people know you're supposed to be here? Daniel took the shirt, ran his fingers over the letters. Instructor, teacher. Someone who shaped others, who passed on knowledge. It felt like wearing a lie, but then again his whole life since discharge had been about wearing lies. Tuesday and Thursday evenings, he asked. To start, maybe Saturday mornings if you're available. The pay isn't much. I don't care about the money. That was a lie. He cared desperately about the money, about every dollar that might make Lily's life easier. But he couldn't let Maya know, that couldn't let her see how close to the edge they lived. "Try on the uniform," Maya said. "The changing room's through there." Daniel took the bag and walked to the small changing room. Inside, fluorescent lights hummed over a bench and a few lockers. He pulled out the uniform, held it up. It was well-made professional, nothing like the bulk-purchased gear he'd seen some of the students wearing. As he changed, he caught his reflection in the mirror. Scars mapped across his torso, some from training, some from combat. One from the surgery that had saved his life after the IED. They told their own story, one that no amount of new uniforms could overwrite. The dobok fit well, though it felt strange after years of ACUs and then work clothes. The fabric was lighter than he expected, designed for movement rather than protection. When he stepped back into the main dojo, Maya was going through her own forms, moving with a grace that spoke of years of dedication. She stopped when she saw him. "It suits you. It feels like a costume." "Everything's a costume. The question is whether you can inhabit it." She moved to the center of the mat. "Show me something. Not Taekwondo, obviously, but whatever you know. I need to understand what I'm working with." "That's not necessary." "It is if we're going to do this. I need to know your style, your instincts, so I can figure out how to integrate what you know with what I teach." Daniel stepped onto the mat reluctantly. The uniform did make a difference. It was easier to move to shift between stances. He started with basic movements from the Marine Corps martial arts program, the foundation exercises that had been drilled into him at Quantico. Strikes, blocks, throws, all designed for simplicity and effectiveness. Maya watched intently, occasionally asking him to repeat a movement or explain the reasoning behind a technique. She was a good student, quick to understand the differences between sport and combat application. "This is designed to end fights quickly," she observed. "That's the point. No one wins a long fight in combat. You neutralize the threat and move on." "Show me a takedown, something you'd teach for self-defense." Daniel hesitated, then moved behind her, demonstrating a simple arm control that could transition into either a restraint or a throw. He was careful not to apply real pressure, just enough for her to feel the technique's potential. "This is about controlling the elbow and shoulder, shista," he explained. "Once you have those points, the whole body follows." Maya turned in his grip, testing the hold. "And if they resist, then you adjust. Fighting isn't choreography, it's problem-solving under pressure." She smiled at that. "I like that phrase. Mind if I steal it? It's not mine to keep." They worked for another hour, Daniel showing techniques while Maya found ways to adapt them for teaching. She was smart, understanding not just the moves, but the principles behind them. Several times she improved on his demonstrations, finding ways to make them more accessible to beginners. "Dad," Lily's voice came from the doorway. She had apparently grown bored with solo practice. "Are you wearing a uniform? It's just clothes, baby. But you look like a real instructor now." She ran over, circling him with obvious delight. "Ms. Kim, isn't he going to be awesome? I think he'll do fine," Maya said diplomatically. A knock on the door interrupted them. Through the glass, Daniel could see a woman with 2 children looking hesitant. "We're closed," Maya called out. "I know, I'm sorry," the woman said through the door. I saw the video from last week, and I wanted to know if the man in it teaches here now. My son is being bullied at school, and traditional classes haven't helped." Maya looked at Daniel, who shook his head slightly, but Lily had already run to the door, opening it before anyone could stop her. "That's my dad," she announced proudly. "He's going to be teaching self-defense." The woman's eyes found Daniel, took in the uniform, the instructor shirt visible in the bag. "Is that true? You're teaching here?" "We're still working out the details," Maya said smoothly, stepping forward. "But yes, we'll be adding self-defense components to our curriculum. If you'd like to leave your contact information, I can call you when we have a schedule." The woman practically glowed with relief. "That would be wonderful. My son, he's tried everything, but the bullies just laugh at his Taekwondo moves. They say it's not real fighting." Daniel felt something twist in his chest. He looked at the boy, maybe 12, skinny, and hunched in on himself the way kids got when they'd been hurt too many times. "What's your name?" Daniel asked the boy. "Marcus," the kid mumbled. "Marcus, can I tell you something? Real fighting isn't about the moves you know. It's about making the other person believe you're willing to use them. Bullies are cowards. They pick on people they think won't fight back. Sometimes just changing how you stand, how you look at them is enough. But what if it's not? Daniel glanced at Maya, then back at the boy. Then you defend yourself, but defense isn't about winning. It's about getting safe. You do what you need to do to get away, then you get help. Fighting isn't heroic, it's just sometimes necessary. The boy nodded, standing a little straighter. His mother thanked them profusely, took Maya's card, and left with promises to enroll as soon as the new program started. When they were gone, Maya turned to Daniel. That was good. What you said to him. It was honest. That's what made it good. She started turning off lights, the dojo falling into shadows. Can you start Thursday? Give me 2 days to advertise, set up a structure. Yeah, I can do that. As he changed back into his street clothes, Daniel wondered what he'd just agreed to. Teaching violence to civilians, even controlled defensive violence, felt like crossing a line he'd drawn in permanent ink. But then he thought about that boy Marcus, and all the kids like him who needed to know that strength wasn't about hurting others, it was about protecting yourself. When he came back out, Maya was waiting with Lily, who had clearly been peppering her with questions. Ms. Kim says you're going to teach the older kids too, Lily said excitedly. Even the teenagers all. We'll see how it goes, Daniel said, taking her hand. I think it's going to be amazing, Maya said, and there was something in her voice that made Daniel look at her more closely. Not hero worship or misplaced admiration, but genuine respect. Thursday, then. Come an hour early so we can plan. Sure. As they walked to the truck, Lily chattering about all the things she was going to tell her friends, Daniel felt the weight of commitment settling over him. He tried so hard to leave that part of himself behind to bury it under construction work and single parenthood. But maybe that was the wrong approach. Maybe instead of burial, what he needed was transformation. Dad, Lily asked as they drove home, are you happy? It was such a simple question, but Daniel had to think about it. I'm working on it. I think Mom would be proud of you for helping those kids. You think? Yeah. She always said you were the strongest person she knew, not just muscle strong, but heart strong. Daniel's throat tightened. Sarah had said that near the end when the cancer had taken everything but her voice. You're going to be okay, she'd whispered. You're the strongest person I know. Just remember that strength isn't just for fighting, it's for living too. When they got home, there was a package on the doorstep. No return address, just his name in block letters. Daniel recognized the handwriting immediately, Colonel Harrison. Inside was a single photo Daniel in full combat gear surrounded by his squad in Afghanistan. Rodriguez was there, still alive, grinning at the camera. Patterson too, and Williams and all the others who hadn't made it home. On the back a note, they'd want you to use what they died teaching you. The offer stands. Daniel crumpled the photo, then smoothed it out again. He couldn't throw it away, couldn't destroy the only evidence that those men had existed. Instead, he put it in the box with his medals, another ghost, to keep locked away. His phone buzzed. Maya again. Thank you for saying yes. I know it wasn't easy. We're going to do good things together. He didn't respond, but for the first time in years, he didn't delete the message either. Maybe that was progress. Maybe that was enough. That night, Lily fell asleep quickly, exhausted from excitement. Daniel sat at the kitchen table, laptop open, researching self-defense techniques that could be taught safely to civilians. He found himself making notes, planning progressions, thinking about how to teach awareness and de-escalation alongside physical techniques. Somewhere around midnight, he realized he was approaching this like a mission. Intel planning objectives, contingencies. The thought should have disturbed him, but instead it felt oddly comforting. He'd been drifting for so long just surviving day to day. Having a purpose, even a small one, made him feel more solid, more real. A sound outside made him tense footsteps on the sidewalk, stopping near his door. His hand moved instinctively to where his sidearm used to be, then relaxed as the footsteps continued past. Just someone walking their dog, probably. But the hypervigilance remained another ghost that would never quite leave. He closed the laptop, checked the locks twice, and went to bed. Tomorrow was Wednesday, a regular construction day. No dojo, no uniforms, no pretense of being anything other than what he appeared to be. But Thursday would come, and with it the beginning of something he couldn't quite name yet. In his dreams, he was teaching hand-to-hand combat to his old squad. But they kept shifting into the kids from the dojo, and he couldn't remember which techniques were safe and which were lethal, and Sarah was there telling him to be strong, but he didn't know if she meant strong enough to fight or strong enough not to. He woke at 3 a.m. as usual, sweat-soaked and reaching for a weapon that wasn't there. But this time, instead of the usual crushing weight of survivor's guilt, he felt something else. Not hope exactly, but the possibility of it. The idea that maybe his skills didn't have to be a burden. Maybe they could be a gift if he could figure out how to give them safely. Wednesday passed in a blur of roofing work and anticipation. His crew noticed his distraction but said nothing. Construction workers knew how to respect a man's privacy. Tommy tried once to bring up the video again, but Daniel's expression shut that down quickly. When Thursday arrived, Daniel found himself standing in front of his closet, again holding the instructor's shirt Maya had given him. Such a simple thing, black fabric with white letters, but it felt heavier than his body armor ever had. Body armor protected him. This shirt would make him responsible for others. "Dad, we're going to be late," Lily called from the living room, already in her dobok. "Coming," he said, pulling on the shirt. In the mirror, he looked almost legitimate, almost like someone who belonged in a dojo instead of on a construction site or a battlefield. The drive to the academy felt shorter than usual, time compressed by anticipation. When they arrived, the parking lot was already full, and Daniel could see Maya inside, surrounded by parents and students. Word had spread about the new self-defense program. "Looks like everyone wants to learn from you," Lily said proudly. "They don't even know me yet." "But they will, and they're going to think you're amazing, just like I do." Daniel pulled her into a quick hug, drawing strength from her unwavering faith in him. Then they walked inside together into the lights and noise and expectation into whatever came next. Maya looked up as they entered, and her smile was both welcome and warning. This was really happening. There was no backing out now. Daniel nodded, accepting the commitment, and moved toward his new role. The students parted as he walked through them, whispers following in his wake. He heard fragments. The one from the video. Military guy. Took down Ms. Kim. But he kept walking eyes forward until he stood beside Maya at the front of the class. She had arranged them by age and skill level, the younger kids in front, teenagers in back. Parents lined the walls, phones already out, ready to document everything. "Everyone, this is Mr. Cross," Maya announced. "He'll be teaching practical self-defense techniques alongside our traditional Taekwondo curriculum. He brings a unique perspective and skill set that will complement what you're already learning." "What rank is he?" Brad Patterson called out from the back, his tone deliberately challenging. "Mr. Cross doesn't hold rank in Taekwondo," Maya said smoothly. "His expertise comes from different training. So he's not even a black belt." "Why should we listen to—" "Would you like to test that theory?" Daniel asked quietly, his voice carrying despite its low volume. "We can demonstrate why rank doesn't always equal capability." The room went silent. Brad's face flushed, but he didn't move forward. "That's what I thought," Daniel said. "First lesson in self-defense, don't start fights you're not prepared to finish. And the best way to win a fight is to avoid it entirely." He turned to address the whole class. "I'm not here to teach you how to hurt people. I'm here to teach you how to keep yourselves safe. There's a difference between can and should. Just because you can throw a punch doesn't mean you should. Just because you can take someone down doesn't mean it's the right choice." A hand went up Marcus, the bullied boy from Tuesday. "But what if someone else starts it? Then you end it as safely and quickly as possible, and then you get help. Fighting back isn't about ego or proving you're tough. It's about survival." Daniel moved to the center of the mat, aware of every eye tracking him. This was the moment that would define everything that came after. He had to get it right, had to find the balance between enough truth to be useful and not so much that it would haunt these kids. "Everyone stand up," he instructed. "We're going to start with the most important self-defense technique there is." The students scrambled to their feet, eager, expectant. "Running," Daniel said. "If you can run, you run. If you can get away, you get away. Fighting is the last resort, not the first. So we're going to practice running practice, escaping practice, using your voice to call for help." Some of the teenagers looked disappointed, expecting something more dramatic. But Daniel saw understanding dawn on some of the parents' faces. They got it. They understood that real self-defense wasn't about being a badass, it was about getting home safe. For the next hour, he taught them escape techniques, how to break simple holds, how to create distance. He kept it basic, practical things that might actually work under stress. Maya assisted, demonstrating how traditional Taekwondo techniques could be adapted for these purposes. When class ended, the students were sweating, exhausted but energized. Several parents approached to thank him, to say this was exactly what they'd been looking for. "My daughter walks home from school," one mother said. "Knowing she can do more than just forms makes me feel better." "Make sure she knows the most important thing is awareness," Daniel told her. "Most attacks can be avoided if you see them coming." As the crowd finally dispersed, leaving only the usual die-hard students who stayed for extra practice, Maya approached him. "That was perfect," she said. "You found exactly the right tone. It's week 1. Give them time to get disappointed when they realize I'm not teaching them to be action heroes." "I don't think that's what they want. I think they want what you gave them permission to run, to escape, to not have to stand and fight like some movie." Daniel watched Lily practicing with her friends, her face bright with pride. "Maybe. Definitely. Same time next week." "Yeah." As he changed out of the instructor's shirt, Daniel realized something had shifted. Not dramatically, not completely, but enough. For the first time since coming home, he'd found a way to use his skills that didn't feel like betrayal or burden. It felt like service, the kind he'd once believed in before war showed him its true face. The photo Harrison had sent still sat in his metal box at home, all those dead faces looking at the camera. But maybe they wouldn't haunt him quite as much if he could use what they'd taught him to keep others safe. Maybe that was a form of honor he could live with. "Dad, you were amazing," Lily said, bouncing over to him. "Everyone was watching you like you were a superhero." "Still not a superhero, baby." "I know. You're better. You're real." And maybe Daniel thought, as they walked out into the evening air, that was enough. Maybe being real, being present, being useful in this small way was its own form of heroism. Not the kind that earned medals or recognition, but the kind that helped kids walk home a little safer, stand a little taller, feel a little less afraid. It wasn't redemption. It wasn't absolution. But it was a start. The weeks that followed developed their own rhythm. Tuesday and Thursday evenings becoming fixed points in Daniel's world that had been shapeless for so long. Each class brought new challenges, new questions from students who were beginning to trust him enough to share their fears. Marcus had started staying after class, working with Daniel on confidence as much as technique. The boy's shoulders were straighter, now his voice stronger when he answered questions. It was the 3rd week of November when everything shifted again. Daniel was demonstrating a wrist release technique, Maya serving as his partner, when the dojo door chimed. He glanced up to see a man in an expensive suit watching from the doorway, his bearing immediately familiar military officer class, the kind of presence that commanded rooms without effort. "Continue," the man said, though nobody had asked his permission. He moved to stand with the parents, but his eyes never left Daniel. Daniel finished the demonstration, his movements slightly stiffer now, hyper-aware of that analytical gaze. When class ended and students began dispersing, the man approached with measured steps. "Staff Sergeant Cross," he said, extending his hand. "Colonel Harrison sends his regards." Daniel didn't take the offered hand. "I'm not Staff Sergeant anything anymore. Just a civilian teaching kids self-defense." "Of course." The man's smile didn't reach his eyes. "James Mitchell, Apex Security Solutions. We're the firm that acquired Colonel Harrison's contracts. I'm here to make you an offer you really should consider." "Not interested," Daniel said flatly, starting to turn away. 50,000 signing bonus. 200,000 annual full benefits. Lily would have her college paid for. Mitchell's voice was smooth, practiced. 6-month rotations, mostly training allied forces. Nothing like your previous deployments. Maya had been organizing equipment nearby, but Daniel saw her stiffen at the numbers. That kind of money was life-changing, especially for someone living paycheck to paycheck. Lily was practicing her forms across the room, unaware of the conversation that could reshape her future. "I said I'm not interested." Mitchell pulled out a business card, expensive stock with embossed lettering. "The offer stands until the end of the month. After that, we'll fill the position with someone else. Someone less qualified, probably, but available." He paused at the door. Your daughter deserves better than a rental house and State College cross. Think about it." After he left, the silence in the dojo felt heavy. Maya approached carefully the way one might approach a wounded animal. That was about private military contracting, legal mercenary work. Daniel's voice was bitter. "They want me to go back teach others how to do what I did. The money sounds blood money." He turned to face her. "Every dollar would be paid for by someone else's ghost." Maya studied him for a moment. "But you're tempted." He wanted to deny it, but she was right. Lily's college fund was nearly empty. Their health insurance was minimal. One bad accident, one serious illness, and they'd lose everything. "Being tempted doesn't mean saying yes," he said finally. That night, Lily was unusually quiet during dinner. She pushed her mac and cheese around her plate, building small mountains and valleys in the pasta. "Something wrong at school?" Daniel asked. "Emma's family is going to Disney World for Christmas," she said quietly. "And Marcus is getting a new bike, one of those really cool ones with the gears. And Sophia's mom is taking her to New York to see a real Broadway show." Daniel felt each example like a small cut. "We'll do something special for Christmas, too." "I know." Lily looked up at him, her eyes too understanding for 7 years old. "I don't need those things, Dad. I just sometimes wonder what it would be like." That night after she was asleep, Daniel sat staring at Mitchell's business card. $200,000 a year. Enough for a real house vacation savings for college. Enough to give Lily the childhood she deserved instead of the one his choices had left her with. His phone rang. Maya's name appeared on the screen. "I'm sorry if I overstepped earlier," she said without preamble. "It's none of my business what job offers you consider." "You didn't overstep. Can I ask you something? Not as your employer, just as a friend?" Daniel was quiet for a moment. Friend. He hadn't had one of those since his squad. "Yeah. What really happened over there? What makes the idea of going back so unbearable?" Daniel closed his eyes, saw Rodriguez's face in that last moment, the surprise in his eyes when the IED went off. "We were escorting a medical convoy, supposed to be a milk run delivering supplies to a field hospital. Intel said the route was clear." Maya waited patient in the silence. "It wasn't clear. Ambush hit us 3 clicks from the hospital. RPGs, small arms, the works. We held them off, but Rodriguez took a round in the chest. Armor stopped it, but he was down, couldn't breathe. I carried him to cover, went back for Patterson. That's when the second IED hit. His hand moved unconsciously to his side, where the shrapnel scars made a constellation of raised tissue. Patterson was maybe 10 feet away. The blast, he swallowed hard. There wasn't enough left to carry, but I tried anyway, dragged what I could find to the medics. They said I saved 3 others that day, but all I remember is not saving Patterson." Daniel. The Bronze Star citation talks about valor under fire. What it should say is that I chose who lived and who died. I made the calculation who could be saved, who couldn't. That's not valor. That's just math. Brutal, horrible math. And they want you to teach others how to make those calculations, among other things. He looked at the card again, at the promise of financial security written in those embossed numbers. Part of me thinks I owe it to Lily, to give her a better life, even if it costs me what's left of my soul. What would Sarah say? The question hit unexpectedly hard. Daniel actually laughed short and bitter. She'd say that Lily needs a father more than she needs money. That being present is worth more than any college fund. Smart woman. Yeah, she was. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, connected by phone lines and shared understanding. "There's something else," Maya said eventually. "The academy is doing well. Really well, actually. Your self-defense classes have brought in 12 new students, and I've had inquiries from 3 other schools about having you guest teach. I can offer you more hours, more money. Not contractor money, but enough to help." Maya. "I'm also thinking about expansion, opening a second location focusing specifically on practical self-defense. I'd need a partner for that, someone who understands that side of training. You barely know me." "I know enough. I know you show up. I know you're good with the kids. I know you have skills I don't and perspective I need. That's more than I knew about Brad when I made him assistant instructor, and look how that turned out." Daniel smiled despite himself. Brad had quit the week before, unable to handle being superseded by someone he saw as an outsider. "I'll think about it," he said. "That's all I ask." Thursday's class brought unexpected drama. Daniel was working with the teenage group on situational awareness when the door burst open. A man stumbled in, clearly drunk, his eyes scanning the room until they landed on a woman in the parents section. "Michelle, I know you're here," he slurred. "You can't keep hiding from me." The woman Michelle shrank back against the wall. Her daughter, one of Maya's students, moved instinctively toward her mother. "Sir, you need to leave," Maya said firmly, stepping forward. "Don't tell me what to do." The man swayed his fists, clenching. "I'm here for my family." Daniel moved without thinking, positioning himself between the man and the students. Not aggressive, just present a barrier. "Hey, friend," Daniel said quietly. "This isn't the place. Whatever's going on, let's take it outside." "Who the hell are you?" The drunk man squared up, trying to look intimidating despite his unsteady stance. "Nobody important, just someone suggesting you make a better choice." The man swung a wide, telegraphed haymaker that Daniel could have avoided in his sleep. Instead of dodging or blocking, Daniel caught the man's wrist, used his momentum to spin him gently but firmly, and guided him toward the door in what looked almost like a dance move. To the students, it appeared effortless, almost friendly. "Sleep it off," Daniel said quietly in the man's ear. "Come back tomorrow sober and apologize to your daughter for embarrassing her. Be the father she deserves." Something in Daniel's tone must have penetrated the alcohol fog. The man stopped struggling, his shoulders sagging. I miss them." "I know, but this isn't how you get them back." Daniel walked him outside, staying with him until an Uber arrived. When he came back in, the entire dojo was silent, students and parents staring at him with expressions ranging from awe to gratitude. "That," Maya announced to the class, "is de-escalation. Mr. Cross could have hurt that man easily. Instead, he removed the threat without violence, maintaining everyone's dignity. That's the highest level of self-defense." Michelle approached Daniel after class, tears in her eyes. "Thank you. He's not a bad man. The divorce has been hard on him." "We all have hard times," Daniel said. "Sometimes we just need someone to remind us who we want to be." As the students filed out chattering excitedly about what they'd witnessed, Lily hugged Daniel tightly. "You didn't hurt him," she said into his stomach, "even though he tried to hit you. Violence is always the last option, baby. Remember that. Is that why you won't take that job? The one the man in the suit talked about?" Daniel pulled back, looking down at her. "You heard that. I hear things. I know it's a lot of money. I know we need money." "Hey, we're doing okay. Dad," Lily's voice was serious beyond her years. "I see you counting pennies at the grocery store. I know why we eat mac and cheese so much. I know why you tell me my shoes still fit when they don't." Daniel's throat tightened. He'd tried so hard to shield her from their financial reality. "But I also see you here," Lily continued. "I see how the kids look at you, how you help them feel safe. That's worth more than money, right? That's what Mom would say. When did you get so wise?" "When I had to." The words were matter-of-fact, devoid of self-pity, and somehow that made them harder to hear. That weekend Mitchell called 3 times. Daniel didn't answer, but the messages were increasingly urgent. The position needed to be filled. The opportunity was time-sensitive. They could negotiate terms, make accommodations. Sunday afternoon, while Lily was at a friend's birthday party, one of the few she'd been invited to since starting at the dojo, Daniel found himself at Sarah's grave. He didn't come often. It felt too much like admitting she was really gone. But sometimes he needed to talk to her, even if she couldn't answer. "They're offering me stupid money," he told the headstone. "Enough to give Lily everything you wanted her to have. Dance lessons, art classes, college without loans. All I have to do is go back to being someone I swore I'd never be again." The cemetery was quiet except for distant traffic and the sound of wind through the trees. Sarah had loved trees, especially in fall. She would have loved how they looked today, all gold and amber in the afternoon sun. "She looks more like you every day," he continued. Same stubborn chin, same way of seeing through my bullshit. She told me yesterday that helping people feel safe is worth more than money, 7 years old and already smarter than me. A family walked past, flowers in hand, heading to another section of the cemetery. Daniel waited until they passed before speaking again. Maya offered me a partnership, expansion of the academy. It's not military money, but it's something. And I could stay here, be present, be the father you always believed I could be. He touched the headstone gently. I think you'd tell me I already know the answer, that I'm just scared to admit that moving forward doesn't mean forgetting, that building something new doesn't betray what we lost. His phone buzzed. A text from Maya, Lily's here early from the party. Emma's mom dropped her off. She seems upset. Daniel drove back to the dojo faster than he should have, worry gnawing at him. He found Lily sitting on the bench, Maya beside her, both of them quiet. What happened? He asked. Nothing, Lily said quickly. Too quickly. Emma's mom said there was an incident, Maya said carefully. Some of the kids were talking about family situations. Daniel sat down on Lily's other side. What did they say? They said I was poor, Lily whispered. They said that's why Mom died, because we couldn't afford good doctors. Daniel felt rage rise in his chest, hot and familiar. His hands clenched into fists before he forced them to relax. That's not true, he said firmly. Mom had the best doctors. The cancer was just too strong. Money couldn't have changed that. But they said, they're kids, baby. They don't understand. They're repeating things. They overheard things that aren't true. Lily looked up at him, eyes wet. Are we poor, Dad? Daniel glanced at Maya, then back at his daughter. We have less money than some people, more than others. But being rich isn't about money. It's about what you have that can't be bought. Like what? Like courage, like kindness, like the ability to help others feel safe, like having people who love you no matter what. Lily leaned against him, and he wrapped his arm around her. Maya stood to give them privacy, but Daniel caught her hand. Stay, he said quietly. You're part of this too. Maya sat back down, and for a moment they were just 3 people on a bench connected by something harder to define than family, but just as real. Mr. Mitchell called while you were gone, Maya said eventually. He wanted me to convince you to take the job, offered the academy a finder's fee. What did you tell him? That he could take his finder's fee and shove it somewhere anatomically improbable. Daniel laughed, surprising himself. Very professional. I have my moments, she paused. But Daniel, if you need to take it for Lily. I don't, he said firmly. We'll figure it out another way. We always do. Monday morning brought unexpected news. Daniel was on a roofing job when his phone rang. The principal of Lily's school asking him to come in immediately. His mind raced through terrible possibilities as he drove. Had she been hurt? Was she in trouble? The principal's secretary directed him to the office, where he found Lily sitting in a chair unharmed, but clearly upset. Across from her sat Emma's mother, looking indignant, and another woman he didn't recognize. Mr. Cross, thank you for coming, the principal said. There's been an incident. What kind of incident? Emma claims that Lily threatened her, Emma's mother said sharply, said she would have her father hurt Emma's father. Daniel looked at Lily, who shook her head vigorously. I didn't say that. She said her dad was a soldier and knew how to hurt people, Emma insisted from her chair in the corner. That's not what I said, Lily's voice rose. I said my dad protects people. I said he teaches people how to be safe. The principal held up his hands. Let's all calm down. Mr. Cross, we need to address the fact that Lily has been telling stories about your military service that are frightening other students. What stories? That you're a war hero, that you won medals for combat actions. Some parents are concerned. Daniel felt the familiar weight of judgment, the way civilian institutions recoiled from any reminder that violence existed in their sanitized world. I served in Afghanistan, he said evenly. I received commendations for my service. If Lily is proud of that, I won't tell her to hide it. But surely you can understand the concern. What I understand, Daniel said, his voice dropping to the tone that used to make recruits stand straighter, is that my 7-year-old daughter is being punished for defending her father against cruel comments about our economic situation. Emma's mother had the grace to look uncomfortable. That's not... Emma told the entire party that Lily's mom died because we were too poor for good doctors. You want to talk about harmful stories? Let's start there. The room fell silent. The principal shuffled papers unnecessarily. Perhaps we all need to have a conversation with our children about appropriate topics. Perhaps we do, Daniel agreed. He stood extending his hand to Lily. Come on, baby. We're going home. Is she suspended? The principal asked. No, she's leaving for the day while I decide if this is the right environment for her education. As they walked to the truck, Lily's hand small in his, she asked, Are you mad at me? Never. You stood up for our family. That's never wrong. But now everyone will be weird about you being a soldier. Let them be weird. We know who we are. That evening at the dojo, word had somehow already spread. Several parents approached Daniel with supportive comments, while others kept their distance, eyeing him with new wariness. Maya pulled him aside before class. Heard about the school thing. You okay? I'm fine. Lily's tougher than she looks. Like her dad. Like her mom, Daniel corrected. Class that night had a different energy. The students watched him with new interest, wondering about the quiet instructor who apparently had a more complex history than they'd imagined. Daniel addressed it head-on. Some of you may have heard rumors about my background, he said at the start of class. Yes, I served in the military. Yes, I saw combat. No, that doesn't make me dangerous to you or special or anything other than someone who did a job and came home. We're here to train to learn to become better versions of ourselves. Everything else is just noise. Marcus raised his hand. Did you really win medals? Medals aren't won, they're earned, and they're not earned by individuals, they're earned by units, by teams. Whatever recognition I received belongs as much to the men I served with as to me. Were you scared? Another student asked. Every day. Being brave doesn't mean not feeling fear. It means doing what needs to be done despite the fear. The class settled after that, returning to their training with renewed focus. Daniel worked with them on escape techniques, on using voice as a weapon, on the psychology of confrontation. He watched Lily with her group, saw her executing moves with new confidence, and felt something ease in his chest. After class, as they were cleaning up, Mitchell appeared again. This time he wasn't alone. Colonel Harrison himself stood in the doorway, older and grayer than Daniel remembered, but still carrying himself with military precision. Daniel, Harrison said simply. Sir? Don't sir me, son. I'm retired just like you. Harrison moved into the dojo, his eyes taking in everything. Nice setup. You teaching these kids the real deal. I'm teaching them to survive. Good. That's all any of us can do. Harrison paused. Mitchell says you're not interested in the contract. That's right. Mind telling me why, and don't give me any bullshit about morality. We both know the world's more complicated than that. Daniel glanced at Lily, who was practicing forms with Maya. Because I promised someone I'd be present. Can't do that from Afghanistan or Iraq or wherever you're sending contractors these days. Harrison followed his gaze. She looks like her mother. You knew Sarah? Met her once at a battalion event. Smart woman. Saw right through all of us. Harrison smiled at the memory. She pulled me aside, told me to take care of you over there because you had important work to do at home. She did that? She did. Guess she knew something we didn't. Harrison pulled out an envelope, handed it to Daniel. This isn't a contract. It's consulting work. Domestic only. Training law enforcement, maybe some federal agencies. Work your own schedule, be home every night. Less money than the overseas gig, but more than you're making now. Daniel took the envelope, but didn't open it. Why? Because men like you shouldn't waste their skills on roofing. Because this country needs people who understand violence, teaching others how to manage it responsibly. Because your daughter deserves to see her father using his talents, not hiding from them. I'll think about it. That's all I ask. Harrison turned to leave, then paused. Rodriguez's widow, she asks about you sometimes. Says you haven't visited. I wouldn't know what to say. Maybe start with the truth. That you tried. That you carry him with you. That his death meant something because you've used it to become someone who prevents other deaths. After they left, Daniel stood in the empty dojo envelope in hand. Maya approached, having settled Lily in the back room with homework. Another job offer. Different kind, domestic training, law enforcement stuff. That sounds better than the alternative. Maybe. He opened the envelope, looked at the numbers. Not life-changing money, but enough. Enough for a better apartment, reliable health insurance, maybe even some savings. It would mean traveling sometimes, few days here and there. We could work around that. I could adjust the class schedule. You'd do that? Maya stepped closer, close enough that he could smell her shampoo, something floral and clean. Daniel, you've brought something to this place that I didn't even know was missing. The students respect you in a way that's different from how they respect me. You make them feel capable not just of defending themselves, but of being better people. I'm just teaching them basic techniques. No. She put her hand on his arm, and he was surprised by how natural it felt. You're teaching them that strength comes in different forms, that violence isn't the answer, but sometimes it's the question, and they need to know how to respond. You're teaching them what you learned the hard way so they don't have to. Daniel looked down at her hand, then up at her face. There was something there, something that had been building for weeks, but that neither of them had acknowledged. Maya. I know, she said quietly. I know it's complicated. I know you're still grieving. I know there are 1,000 reasons why this is a bad idea. But Daniel, at some point you have to stop just surviving and start living again. Before he could respond, Lily's voice called out from the back room. Dad, I finished my homework. Can we go home? The moment broke Maya stepping back, both of them suddenly aware of the space between them. Think about the job, Maya said, professional distance restored. Think about all of it. That night, Daniel sat at his kitchen table, Harrison's offer spread out before him. Lily was asleep, the house quiet, except for the hum of the refrigerator and the distant sound of traffic. He thought about Rodriguez, about Patterson, about all the men who hadn't come home. He thought about Sarah, about her belief that he could be more than just a warrior. He picked up his phone, scrolled to Maria Rodriguez's number. He'd had it for years, never used it. Before he could lose his nerve, he pressed call. Hello? Her voice was cautious, uncertain. Maria, it's Daniel Cross. Silence for a long moment. Daniel, I wondered if you'd ever call. I'm sorry it took so long. I didn't know what to say. You don't have to say anything. Just tell me about that day. Tell me he wasn't alone. So Daniel told her. Not the sanitized version from the official report, but the truth. How Rodriguez had joked that morning about his son's Little League game. How he'd shared his MRE crackers because Daniel had given his to a local kid. How when the ambush hit, Rodriguez had pushed another soldier out of the line of fire, taking the round himself. How Daniel had held him while they waited for the medevac, talking about home, about baseball, about anything but the blood. He saved someone, Maria said through tears. He saved several people. He was a hero, Maria, a real one. He always said you were the hero, said you kept them all safe. We kept each other safe, until we couldn't. They talked for another hour, sharing memories, grief, and something that might have been healing. When Daniel finally hung up, he felt lighter somehow, as if a weight he'd carried for years had shifted, become more bearable. He looked at Harrison's offer again. Training law enforcement, teaching them the skills that might keep them alive, that might help them protect others. It wasn't redemption, but it was purpose. He texted Harrison, I'll take the consulting job, part-time to start. Need to maintain my commitment to the dojo. The response was immediate. Good man. Welcome back to the world of the living. Daniel then texted Maya, took the consulting job. Also, would you like to have dinner sometime without Lily, without students, just us? This response took longer, and he could almost imagine her debating, weighing risks and possibilities. Finally, Friday night, I'll find a babysitter for Lily. Pick me up at 7. For the first time in longer than he could remember, Daniel smiled without weight behind it. Not because everything was fixed or healed or perfect, but because it was moving forward. Because maybe Sarah had been right. All along. Strength wasn't just for fighting, it was for living too. Friday arrived faster than Daniel expected, bringing with it a nervousness he hadn't felt since his first patrol in Afghanistan. He stood in front of his closet, realizing how limited his wardrobe had become, work clothes, training gear, and one suit he'd worn to Sarah's funeral. Maya had said casual, but everything he owned seemed to carry the weight of his past lives. "You look fine, Dad," Lily said from the doorway, already dressed in her pajamas for the babysitter. "Ms. Kim likes you no matter what you wear." "It's just dinner between colleagues," Daniel said, pulling on a clean button-down shirt. "Sure it is." Lily's knowing smile was too mature for her age. "That's why you've changed shirts 3 times. The babysitter arrived at 6:30. Mrs. Chen from next door, who'd watched Lily before, and whom Lily actually liked. Daniel gave his usual instructions, phone numbers, emergency contacts, trying not to think about how long it had been since he'd gone anywhere that wasn't work or the dojo. Maya lived in a townhouse on the better side of Cincinnati, the kind of neighborhood where people jogged with expensive strollers and coffee shops had French names. When she answered the door, Daniel forgot how to speak for a moment. She'd traded her usual training attire for a simple dress that somehow made her look both elegant and approachable. "You clean up nice," she said, smiling at his obvious discomfort. "You too. You always—" He stopped, took a breath. "Should we start over?" "Please don't. Nervous Daniel is actually kind of charming." They went to a small Italian restaurant. Maya knew the kind of place with checkered tablecloths and candles stuck in wine bottles. It should have felt cliché, but instead it felt comfortable, unpretentious. The owner knew Maya by name, asked about the dojo, seated them at a quiet corner table. "So," Maya said after they'd ordered, "tell me something about yourself that has nothing to do with the military or being a father." Daniel thought for a long moment. "I used to paint." "Really?" "Watercolors mostly, landscapes. Sarah bought me this expensive set, one Christmas professional grade. I painted every weekend for a while." "What happened?" "Deployment, then another deployment, then Sarah got sick and painting pictures of pretty places seemed—" He shrugged. "The brushes are still in a box somewhere." "You should start again." "Maybe." He turned the conversation. "Your turn. Something non-Taekwondo related." Maya laughed. "That's harder than you'd think. Taekwondo has been my life since I was 8. She considered. "I have a degree in mechanical engineering." "Seriously?" "My parents' idea, backup plan in case the martial arts thing didn't work out. They're very practical people, Korean immigrants who believed in safety nets and stable careers." "But you chose fighting instead." "I chose teaching. The fighting was just the medium." She paused, wine glass halfway to her lips. "Though my parents still introduce me as their daughter, the engineer who happens to do martial arts." They talked through dinner, conversation flowing easier than Daniel had expected. Maya told him about growing up caught between 2 cultures, Korean at home and American everywhere else. How Taekwondo had been her parents' way of keeping her connected to heritage, but it became her way of defining herself. "The first time I won a tournament, my father cried," she said. "I'd never seen him emotional before. He said I'd found my own way to be both Korean and American, traditional and modern." That's a lot of weight to carry. All of us carry weight. The question is whether we let it crush us or strengthen us. Daniel thought about the weight he carried. Grief, guilt, responsibility. Some days it's one, some days the other. "But you keep carrying it. That's what matters." Their plates were cleared, dessert offered, and declined. Neither seemed ready for the evening to end. "Walk with me," Maya asked. They strolled through the neighborhood autumn air, crisp enough to justify Maya taking his arm. It felt natural, right in a way Daniel hadn't expected to feel again. "Can I ask you something personal?" Maya said. "How did Sarah die?" "You've mentioned cancer, but—" Daniel was quiet for a moment, organizing thoughts he usually kept locked away. "Pancreatic, stage 4 when they found it. 6 months from diagnosis to—" He swallowed. "She fought so hard. Harder than anyone should have to fight. But some battles can't be won. I'm sorry. She made me promise things near the end. To keep Lily in dance classes, which lasted about a month before we couldn't afford it. To find someone else, which seemed impossible to even consider. To stop punishing myself for surviving when others didn't. Have you kept that last promise?" "I'm trying. Some days are better than others." He looked down at her. "Tonight's a better day." They'd circled back to Maya's townhouse. She didn't let go of his arm. "Would you like to come in just for coffee? Mrs. Chen doesn't expect you back until 11. Daniel knew he should say no, knew this was moving too fast, knew he wasn't ready. But Maya was looking at him with such open hope, and he was tired of saying no to possibilities. Coffee sounds good. Her house was exactly what he'd expected. Clean, organized with traditional Korean art mixed with modern furniture. Trophies and medals displayed but not ostentatiously. Photos of students' family, a younger Maya in competition. She made coffee while he studied the pictures. One caught his attention, Maya, with an older man in military uniform. "My brother," she said, handing him a mug. "Staff Sergeant Kim, Army Intelligence." "Where's he stationed?" "He's not. Medical discharge 3 years ago. IED messed up his leg and his head. The leg healed." Daniel understood what she wasn't saying. "Is he getting help?" "Some days he accepts it, some days he doesn't. Sound familiar?" "Yeah." They sat on the couch, not quite touching, but close enough to feel each other's warmth. "Is that why you didn't run when you found out about my background?" Daniel asked. "Because of your brother." "Partly, but mostly because I saw how you were with Lily with the students. You could have come back angry, violent, broken. Instead, you came back careful, protective. That takes a different kind of strength." "I am broken," Daniel said quietly. "Just functioning broken." Maya set down her coffee, turned to face him fully. "We're all broken, Daniel. Every single one of us. The question is whether we let the broken edges cut others or whether we smooth them down, make them safe." She was close enough that he could see the flecks of gold in her brown eyes, could smell that floral shampoo again. His heart was pounding like he was back in combat, but this was a different kind of fear. "Maya, I know you're scared," she said softly. "I know it feels like betraying Sarah. I know you think you don't deserve this, but Daniel, you're allowed to be happy again. You're allowed to want things for yourself, not just for Lily." She kissed him, then gentle and undemanding. For a moment, Daniel froze, guilt and desire warring in his chest. Then something gave way, some wall he'd built, and he kissed her back. When they pulled apart, both were breathing unsteadily. "Too fast?" Maya asked. "No, maybe. I don't know." Daniel ran his hand through his hair. "I haven't. It's been since Sarah. We don't have to do anything. We can take this as slow as you need. It's not that, it's..." He struggled for words. "I don't know how to be with someone when I'm not who I used to be. Sarah knew me before Afghanistan, before everything went dark. You're meeting me after, and I don't know if what's left is enough." Maya took his hand, traced the scars across his knuckles. "I'm not looking for who you were. I'm interested in who you are. The man who shows up every Tuesday and Thursday, who teaches kids to be strong without being cruel, who carried his wounded brother when everyone else would have run. That man is more than enough." Before Daniel could respond, his phone buzzed. Mrs. Chen letting him know Lily had woken up from a nightmare and was asking for him. "I have to go," he said, apology in his voice. "Of course, Lily comes first. Always." At the door, Maya stopped him with a hand on his arm. "Daniel, this doesn't have to change anything at the dojo. We can keep it separate, professional there. Is that what you want?" "I want whatever makes you comfortable, whatever keeps you coming back." He kissed her again, quick but sincere. "I'll see you Tuesday." The drive home was a blur of streetlights and racing thoughts. When he got home, he found Lily curled on the couch with Mrs. Chen, her face tear-stained but calm. "Bad dream?" he asked, gathering her into his arms. "About Mom," Lily whispered, "but also about you. You were leaving and I couldn't make you stay." "I'm not going anywhere, baby. I'm right here. Promise?" "Promise." After Mrs. Chen left and Lily was back in bed, Daniel sat on her floor watching her sleep. She looked so much like Sarah in these quiet moments, the same curve of her cheek, the same way of clutching her pillow. "I kissed someone tonight," he whispered to the darkness. "Maya. I think you'd like her. She's strong and kind, and she makes me remember that there's more to life than just surviving. Is that okay? Is it okay that I want that?" Lily stirred but didn't wake. Outside, a siren wailed in the distance, the sound of someone else's crisis. Daniel had learned to differentiate sirens since coming home, ambulance, fire, police, each one a different kind of emergency. But tonight, They were just background noise, someone else's story. His phone buzzed, a text from Maya. "Thank you for tonight, for trying. That's all anyone can ask." He typed back, "Thank you for being patient with my ghosts." We all have ghosts, Daniel. The trick is learning to live with them instead of for them. Monday brought the first day of his consulting work with Harrison's company. The facility was an hour outside Cincinnati, a nondescript building that could have been anything from a warehouse to a tech startup. Inside it was pure function training mats, weapons lockers, classrooms with whiteboards covered in tactical diagrams. "Welcome to Apex Training Solutions," Harrison said, meeting him at reception. Less sexy than overseas work, but arguably more important. He introduced Daniel to the team's 6 other instructors, all former military or law enforcement. Daniel recognized the type: immediately competent professional carrying their histories in their posture and watchful eyes. "Cross here will be handling our de-escalation and close-quarters defense modules," Harrison announced. He has a gift for teaching violence without glorifying it. The first class was a group of rookie police officers fresh from the academy and eager to prove themselves. Daniel watched them strutting in full of untested confidence and saw himself 15 years ago. "Forget everything you think you know about hand-to-hand combat," he began. "Movies, video games, even most of what they taught you at the academy. Real violence is fast, ugly, and usually unnecessary. My job is to teach you to avoid it when possible and survive it when it's not." One recruit, barely old enough to buy beer legally, raised his hand. "But we're cops. We need to be ready to fight." "No," Daniel said firmly. "You need to be ready to protect and serve. Fighting is maybe 1% of that. The other 99% is communication, observation, and judgment. A cop who's eager to fight is a cop who's going to end up on the news for all the wrong reasons." He spent the morning teaching them awareness exercises, verbal de-escalation techniques, the psychology of confrontation. Only in the afternoon did he move to physical techniques, and even then he emphasized control over dominance. "Your goal is never to win a fight," he told them. "Your goal is to control a situation until backup arrives or the threat is neutralized. Every use of force should be the minimum necessary, not the maximum allowed." During a break, one of the other instructors, a former Navy SEAL named Thompson, approached him. "You're not teaching them to be warriors," Thompson observed. "They're not warriors, they're peace officers. There's a difference. Some of them won't survive without a warrior mentality." Daniel thought of Rodriguez, of Patterson, of all the warriors who hadn't survived despite their mentality. And some of them won't survive with it. They'll shoot when they should talk escalate, when they should retreat. They'll become what they're supposed to prevent. Thompson studied him for a moment. "You've thought about this a lot." "Every day since I came home." The week settled into a rhythm, consulting Monday, Wednesday, and Friday mornings, construction work when he could fit it in the dojo Tuesday and Thursday evenings. It was exhausting, but purposeful. For the first time since discharge, Daniel felt like he was building something instead of just maintaining. Thursday evening at the dojo brought an unexpected challenge. A group of older teenagers had enrolled transfers from another school that had closed. They came with attitude, skepticism, and in one case, barely concealed aggression. "Why should we listen to you?" one of them, a kid named Tyler, asked during Daniel's self-defense session. "You're not even a real Taekwondo instructor." "You're right," Daniel said calmly. "I'm not. So if you want to learn Taekwondo, work with Ms. Kim. If you want to learn how to not get hurt in the real world, work with me." "I don't need to learn how not to get hurt. I need to learn how to hurt others." The dojo went quiet. Maya started to intervene, but Daniel held up a hand. "Why?" he asked simply. Tyler seemed taken aback by the directness. Why do you need to learn to hurt others who hurt you?" The teenager's bravado cracked slightly. "That's none of your business." "You're right, it's not. But I can guess. Someone bigger, stronger. Someone who made you feel powerless, and now you want to be the one with power." Tyler's jaw clenched, but he didn't deny it. "I get it," Daniel continued. "I've been there, but here's what I learned: hurting others doesn't heal your hurt. It just spreads it around. You want to feel powerful. Learn to walk away from a fight. Learn to protect others who can't protect themselves. That's real power." "That's bullshit," Tyler spat, but there was less conviction in it. "Maybe. Tell you what, spar with me. Full contact within reason. If you can land one solid hit, I'll teach you whatever you want to learn. If you can't, you train my way for 1 month. Deal." Tyler looked around at his friends, trapped by teenage pride. "Deal." They cleared a space, other students forming a circle. Maya looked concerned but didn't interfere. She understood that sometimes lessons had to be physical to be understood. Tyler came at him hard, all aggression and no strategy. Daniel moved minimally, redirecting rather than blocking, using Tyler's own momentum against him. Every time the teenager thought he had an opening, Daniel wasn't there. Every time he threw a punch or kick with real intent, he found himself off balance, stumbling. After 3 minutes, Tyler was gasping, frustrated, nearly in tears from embarrassment and exhaustion. He'd thrown dozens of strikes and hadn't come close to connecting. "Lesson 1, Daniel said, not even breathing hard. "Anger makes you stupid. Lesson 2, the person who stays calm usually wins. Lesson 3, you just got a full workout while I barely moved. Who do you think would last longer in a real fight?" Tyler dropped to his knees, defeated in more ways than physical. His friends helped him up, their earlier cockiness replaced with respect. 1 month, Daniel reminded him. "My way." Tyler nodded, unable to speak through his gasping. After class, his parents collected their kids and the new teenagers left, with considerably less swagger than they'd arrived with. Maya approached Daniel. "That was risky," she said. "Calculated risk. Kid needed to learn he wasn't as tough as he thought." "No, I mean letting him that close to you. I saw your hands shaking afterward." Daniel looked down at his hands, noticed the tremor for the first time. "It's harder than I thought, letting people try to hurt me without responding the way I was trained to. But you did it. You stayed in control. This time." Maya touched his arm gently. "Every time. That's who you are now." Before he could respond, Lily bounded over, full of excitement about a new form she'd learned. The moment passed, but the warmth of Maya's touch lingered. That weekend, Harrison called with a special request. "FBI wants a demonstration. They're developing a new training protocol for dealing with veterans in crisis. They want someone who understands both sides." "I'm not sure I'm the right person for that." "You're exactly the right person. You've been in crisis. You've come through it. You can speak to it in a way that matters." The session was scheduled for Monday. Daniel spent the weekend researching, preparing, trying to figure out how to explain the inexplicable, how a trained warrior could become a danger to themselves and others, and how to reach them in that darkness. Sunday evening, while Lily was at a sleepover, Maya came by. They'd been careful at the dojo, maintaining professional distance, but here in his small kitchen, that distance dissolved. "You're nervous about tomorrow?" she observed, watching him pace. "I have to explain how people like me think when we're at our worst. How do I do that without—" He struggled for words. "Without going back there myself. By remembering why you're doing it. To help others, both the veterans and the agents who have to deal with them." She stayed that night. Nothing physical beyond holding each other on the couch. Daniel talking about things he'd never told anyone, the paranoia that first year back. The times he'd almost hurt someone because they moved too fast or came up behind him the night he'd sat in his car with his service weapon, wondering if Lily would be better off without a broken father. "But you didn't," Maya said into his chest. "You chose to stay to fight to heal. I chose to survive. I'm not sure that's the same as healing. Maybe healing is just surviving long enough to help others do the same." Monday's FBI session was held in a federal building downtown, all concrete and security checkpoints. Daniel found himself in front of 40 agents, all watching him with professional interest. "I'm not here to teach you tactics," he began. "I'm here to teach you empathy. When you encounter a veteran in crisis, you're not dealing with a criminal or a crazy person. You're dealing with someone whose survival instincts have been weaponized and who may not be able to turn them off." He talked about hypervigilance, about PTSD triggers, about the way a trained soldier's body could react before their mind caught up. He demonstrated holds that would work without triggering combat responses, verbal techniques that acknowledged rather than challenged. "The biggest mistake you can make is to treat them like either a hero or a threat," he said. "They're neither. They're someone trying to reconcile who they were trained to be with, who the world needs them to be now. Your job is to give them space to make that choice." One agent raised her hand. "What if they can't make that choice? What if they're too far gone?" Daniel was quiet for a moment, thinking of friends who hadn't made it back, not from war, but from the peace that followed. Then you do what you have to do to protect others, but you do it with respect for what they were, not judgment for what they've become. The session went 3 hours with role-playing and scenarios. By the end, Daniel was exhausted, emotionally drained from revisiting places he'd tried to leave behind. But Harrison clapped him on the shoulder, said it was the best training they'd ever received. Tuesday evening, he arrived at the dojo to find Tyler already there an hour early, practicing the basic forms Daniel had shown him. The kid's friends were with him, all working with surprising dedication. "You came back," Daniel observed. "Said I would," Tyler replied, not stopping his practice. "1 month your way." "Why the extra hour?" Tyler finally stopped, faced him. "Because maybe you were right. Maybe being strong isn't about hurting people, but I need to know I could if I had to. Does that make sense?" "More than you know," Daniel said. "Let's work on your stance." As the regular class began filling in, Daniel noticed something different. The energy had shifted over the weeks. What had started as curiosity about the mysterious instructor had evolved into genuine respect and engagement. Students helped each other, older kids mentoring younger ones, parents participating instead of just watching. Maya caught his eye across the room, smiled. They'd been careful to keep things professional during class, but everyone seemed to sense something had changed. Lily certainly had, watching them with knowing looks and occasional giggles. Halfway through class, the door burst open. A man Daniel didn't recognize stumbled in, but this wasn't like the drunk ex-husband from weeks ago. This man moved with purpose despite his apparent intoxication, his eyes scanning until they found Tyler. "There you are, you little shit," the man snarled. "Thought you could hide from me." Tyler went pale, stepping back instinctively. "Dad, not here." "Not here. You embarrassed me in front of my friends, telling them I hit your mother. You're coming home right now." Daniel moved between them, calm but ready. "Sir, this is a children's class. If you have an issue with your son, we can discuss it outside." "Get out of my way, G.I. Joe. This is family business." "Not in my dojo," Maya said firmly, stepping up beside Daniel. Tyler's father laughed ugly and mean. "Your dojo. You're going to let this piece of shit and his Oriental girlfriend tell you what to do, Tyler?" The slur hung in the air like a challenge. Daniel felt the familiar rage rise, the one that had gotten him through firefights but had no place in civilian life. His hands wanted to become weapons, his body shifting automatically into combat stance. "Dad, please," Tyler pleaded. "Just go home. I'll come later." "You'll come now." The man lunged forward, reaching for his son. Daniel intercepted him, but this time there was no gentle redirection. He caught the man's wrist, applied pressure to specific points that sent him to his knees, gasping. It took every ounce of control not to do more, not to break the wrist that had apparently struck Tyler's mother. "You have 2 choices," Daniel said quietly, his voice carrying the same tone that had once commanded men in combat. "You leave now peacefully and deal with your family issues through proper channels, or I call the police, file assault charges, and make sure everyone knows what kind of man you really are." "You can't." Daniel applied slightly more pressure, just enough to emphasize his point. "I can. I will. Choose." The man's resistance crumbled. "I'll go," he gasped. Daniel released him, stepped back. Tyler's father scrambled to his feet, face red with humiliation and rage. "This isn't over," he spat, then stumbled out. The dojo was silent. Tyler stood frozen, tears streaming down his face, afraid and embarrassed in equal measure. Without thinking, Daniel pulled the boy into a hug, felt him collapse against his chest, sobbing. "It's okay," Daniel murmured. "You're safe here. You're always safe here." When Tyler finally pulled back, the entire class was watching, not with judgment or pity, but with understanding. Several other students moved closer, offering support without words. "My mom left last week," Tyler said quietly. "Took my sister, went to my aunt's house. But I had to stay because of school, and he's been—" He trailed off. "Do you have somewhere safe to go tonight?" Maya asked. "My uncle. He lives across town." "Then that's where you'll go. We'll call him, make sure you get there safely." As Maya handled the logistics, Daniel addressed the class. "What you just saw is why we train. Not for tournaments or trophies, but for moments like this. To protect those who can't protect themselves, to stand up to bullies regardless of their age or relation to us. But you could have hurt him worse, Marcus said. You could have really damaged him. Yes, Daniel admitted. But that would have made me like him. Violence should always be the minimum necessary, never the maximum possible. That's what separates us from them. The rest of class was subdued but focused. Tyler's uncle arrived, a solid-looking man who thanked them profusely for protecting his nephew. After everyone left, Daniel and Maya stood in the empty dojo processing what had happened. You wanted to hurt him, Maya observed. Tyler's father. I saw it in your eyes. I wanted to destroy him, Daniel admitted. Every instinct, every piece of training wanted to put him down permanently. But you didn't. But I wanted to. What does that make me? Maya moved closer, took his hands in hers. Human. It makes you human. The difference between you and him is that you choose not to act on those impulses. It's getting harder, Daniel confessed. The more I care about these kids, about this place, about you, the harder it is to stay controlled when someone threatens any of it. That's not weakness, Daniel. That's growth. You're letting yourself care again, letting yourself connect. Of course that makes you more protective. Lily appeared from the back room where she'd been doing homework. Is Tyler okay? He will be, Daniel told her. His dad was scary. Yes, he was. But you weren't scared. Daniel knelt down to her level. I was scared, baby. Scared I might hurt someone. Scared Tyler might get hurt. Being brave doesn't mean not feeling fear. I know, Lily said, repeating his own words back to him. It means doing what needs to be done despite the fear. That night, after Lily was asleep, Daniel sat on his porch with the business card Mitchell had left. The private military contractor job was still available, still offering escape from all of this complexity. In Afghanistan, the enemies were clear, the rules of engagement defined. Here, every situation required judgment, restraint, navigation of gray areas that had no clear answers. His phone rang. Tyler's uncle. Mr. Cross, I wanted to thank you again. Tyler told me you've been teaching him, helping him channel his anger. He's never had a positive male role model before. He's a good kid. He just needs to believe it himself. His father... There's a restraining order now, but Tyler wants to keep coming to classes if that's okay. Of course. The dojo is his safe space. It always will be. After hanging up, Daniel realized he'd made a decision without conscious thought. He wasn't taking the contractor job, wasn't running back to the clarity of combat. This was his mission now. These kids, this place, this complicated civilian life that demanded more courage than any firefight. He tore up Mitchell's card, let the pieces scatter in the night wind. Inside his phone buzzed with a text from Maya. Proud of you tonight. You showed them what real strength looks like. He typed back, still learning. Good thing I have a good teacher. We're teaching each other, she replied. See you Thursday. And Daniel Tyler's not the only one who needed a hero tonight. You gave all of them permission to stand up for what's right. Daniel didn't feel like a hero. Heroes were supposed to be certain, confident, untainted by doubt or darkness. But maybe that was the point. Maybe real heroes were just broken people who chose to help despite their own damage, who stood between danger and innocence even when their hands shook, who offered safety even when they didn't feel safe themselves. The winter arrived early that year, December, bringing snow that transformed Cincinnati into something almost magical. Daniel stood at the dojo window watching fat flakes drift past the glass, while his advanced class worked through their forms. Tyler had become his most dedicated student, channeling months of suppressed rage into disciplined practice. The boy's transformation was remarkable, where once there had been unfocused aggression, now there was controlled power. Mr. Cross? Marcus approached hesitantly. My mom wanted me to give you this. It was an envelope, thank you, written across the front in careful script. Inside a Christmas card and a note, you gave my son his confidence back. He walks taller, now speaks up in class. The bullying has stopped. We can never repay what you've done. Daniel tucked the card into his gear bag where it joined a growing collection. 3 months of teaching had brought dozens of similar notes, small testimonies to changes he hadn't expected to make. All right, everyone, gather round, he called. The students formed a semicircle, their faces flushed from exertion. Christmas break starts next week. I want to talk about something important. Lily sat in the front row, her white belt recently replaced with yellow earned through weeks of dedicated practice. She watched him with the same attentiveness as the other students, never presuming on their relationship for special treatment. The holidays can be complicated, Daniel began. Family gatherings travel situations where you might feel vulnerable or uncomfortable. Everything we've practiced here, awareness, de-escalation, self-protection, applies even more during these times. Especially with drunk Uncle Jerry, one of the teenagers muttered, earning nervous laughter from others who apparently had their own Uncle Jerrys. Exactly, Daniel said. Sometimes the biggest threats come from people we know. You have the right to protect your physical and emotional space even from family, especially from family. Maya entered from the office carrying a stack of flyers. Before you all leave, I have an announcement. We're hosting a special New Year's event, a combination demonstration and fundraiser. All proceeds go to the local women's shelter. Mr. Cross and I will be doing a joint presentation on practical self-defense. The students erupted in excited chatter. They'd never seen their instructors truly spar only controlled demonstrations. Will you fight each other? Someone asked eagerly. We'll demonstrate various techniques, Maya said diplomatically. It's not about fighting, it's about showing the community what real self-defense looks like. After class, as students filtered out into the snowy evening, Tyler lingered. His uncle waited in the car, patient as always. Mr. Cross, I wanted to ask, my dad's been calling. Says he's getting help, wants to see me for Christmas. Daniel felt the familiar tightness in his chest that came with navigating these impossible situations. What do you want? I don't know. Part of me wants to believe he's changed. Part of me knows he hasn't. He's done this before, promised to get better, been good for a few weeks, then... Tyler shrugged the gesture, carrying years of disappointment. You don't owe him forgiveness, Daniel said carefully. And you definitely don't owe him access to you. Getting help is his responsibility. Protecting yourself is yours. But he's my father. Daniel thought of his own father dead 10 years now. From a heart attack, their relationship forever frozen in polite distance. Biology doesn't equal obligation. Family is who shows up for you, who keeps you safe, who helps you become better. That's your uncle right now, not your dad. Tyler nodded slowly. My mom says the same thing. She calls every day from my aunt's house. She wants me to come for Christmas, but I don't want to leave my uncle alone. Maybe they can work something out together. Adults who actually care about you will find ways to make sure you're okay. As Tyler left, Maya approached, slipping her hand into Daniel's. They'd grown less careful about hiding their relationship, though they maintained professionalism during classes. You handled that well, she said. Did I wanted to tell him to never speak to his father again. But you didn't. You gave him agency, let him make his own choice with good information. They stood together watching the snow fall, the dojo warm and quiet around them. These moments of peace had become precious islands of calm in lives that had been shaped by conflict. Lily asked me something yesterday, Maya said. She wanted to know if I was going to be her new mom. Daniel's breath caught. What did you tell her? So that I cared about both of you very much, but those were big decisions that took time. Was that okay? It was perfect. He turned to face her. But since we're being honest, I've been thinking about it too. Not marriage, not yet, but more. Something more permanent. Maya smiled, the expression lighting up her whole face. I've been thinking the same thing. My parents want to meet you, by the way. They've been hearing about this mysterious veteran who's stolen their daughter's attention. Stolen? Captured maybe, though I went pretty willingly. Before Daniel could respond, his phone rang. Harrison's number. Daniel, we have a situation. Can you come to the facility? Now. What kind of situation? One of our contractors, Williams. You knew him in Afghanistan. He's barricaded himself in the training room, fully armed. Says he'll only talk to you. Daniel's blood went cold. Jake Williams had been in his unit, one of the few who'd made it home physically intact. I'll be right there. Maya drove him, insisting he shouldn't go alone. The facility was surrounded by police cars when they arrived, lights painting the snow red and blue. Harrison met them at the perimeter. He's been in there 3 hours. Won't talk to negotiators, won't talk to me. Just keeps asking for you. What triggered this? Contract fell through. His wife left last month, took the kids. Perfect storm of bad news. Harrison paused. He's got enough ammunition to hold out for days, Daniel, and he's positioned where SWAT can't get a clean shot without risking him shooting back. Daniel understood what Harrison wasn't saying. Williams was looking for suicide by cop, but wanted to go down fighting. Let me talk to him. The police won't allow. Then make them allow it. You called me here for a reason. It took 20 minutes of arguing, signing waivers, accepting responsibility. Finally, they let him approach the building wearing a vest they insisted on, despite his protest that it would only make Williams more suspicious. The training facility was dark except for emergency lighting. Williams had barricaded himself in the main mat room, furniture piled against doors, windows covered. Daniel could see the tactical positioning, good sight lines, multiple fallback positions. Williams had always been smart. "Jake," Daniel called out. "It's Cross. Danny Cross." Silence for a long moment, then, "That really you, Danny?" "Yeah, brother, it's me. Mind if I come in?" "It's cold out here." A bitter laugh. "Sure, why not? Door's open." "Well, one of them is." Daniel found Williams sitting in the center of the mat, an AR-15 across his lap, several pistols within reach. He looked gaunt, hollow-eyed, like a ghost of the soldier Daniel had known. "You look like shit, Jake," Daniel said, sitting down a careful distance away. "You look civilian, soft." "Maybe. Been teaching kids martial arts, trying to convince them violence isn't the answer, while knowing sometimes it is." Williams laughed again, no humor in it. "Violence is the only answer that ever made sense. Over there, at least, we knew who the enemy was." "Did we really? More than here. Here the enemy is everywhere. Bills divorce lawyers, employers who promise contracts, then pull them." He gestured with the rifle. "At least this is simple. Point, shoot, problem solved. Except the problem's inside Jake. You can't shoot that." "Watch me." Daniel shifted slightly, careful not to seem threatening. "Remember that night in Kandahar when we thought we were surrounded, completely fucked?" "Yeah. You started telling that stupid joke about the Marine and the sailor. Got you laughing so hard you forgot to be scared, until Rodriguez pointed out we weren't actually surrounded, just lost." Williams' grip on the rifle loosened slightly. "Rodriguez. He dead." "Yeah, year before we came home. Lucky bastard. Didn't have to deal with this shit. You think Maria Rodriguez thinks her husband was lucky? You think his kids do?" Williams was quiet for a moment. "My kids won't even talk to me. Say I scare them." "Do you?" "Probably. I scare myself sometimes." He looked at Daniel directly for the first time. "How do you do it, Danny? How do you pretend to be normal?" "I don't. I just try to be useful. Found people who need what we learned, even if what we learned was horrible." "Nobody needs what I learned." "Tyler Brennan does." Williams frowned. "Who?" "Kid at the dojo. 16, angry, abusive father. Was heading down a bad path until I taught him how to control his anger instead of letting it control him. Use the same techniques Gunny taught us for staying calm under fire." "You're teaching kids combat techniques." "I'm teaching them the discipline that comes with combat techniques. The control, the responsibility. The understanding that being capable of violence makes you responsible for restraining it." Williams was listening now, the rifle resting forgotten across his legs. "There's a girl, Marcus, who was being bullied. Taught her how to stand tall, project confidence. Bullies stopped bothering her because she stopped looking like a victim. That's straight from our force protection training." "It's not the same." "No, it's not. But Jake, we came back with skills nobody wants to acknowledge. We can either let those skills poison us, or we can find ways to transform them into something useful." "Easy for you to say. You've got your shit together." Daniel laughed, harsh and genuine. "My shit is held together with duct tape and stubbornness. I wake up at 3 a.m. most nights reaching for a weapon that isn't there. I check exits everywhere I go. Last month, a car backfired and I hit the deck in a grocery store parking lot, scared the hell out of some poor woman with her kids." "But you've got that kid. Lily." "Yeah, she's my anchor. But Jake, you've got kids too." "Who won't see me?" "Right now. Because right now you're not safe for them. But that can change. You can get help. Real help, not just VA groups that don't understand. You can become someone they want to know again. Williams looked around the barricaded room. I've really fucked this up, haven't I? Yeah, but it's not unfixable. Not yet. Put the weapons down, Jake. Come with me. Harrison knows a program inpatient specifically for operators like us. Real help, not bureaucratic bullshit. The cops will be handled. Harrison has connections. No charges if you come peacefully get treatment. William's hand tightened on the rifle again. What if I can't? What if this is all I am now, a weapon without a target? Then you learn to be something else. It's possible, Jake. I'm doing it. Slowly, badly sometimes, but doing it. You were always stronger than the rest of us. No, I just had someone depending on me to figure it out. Daniel moved closer within reach now. Your kids need you to figure it out too. Not today, maybe not tomorrow, but eventually. They need their father not perfect, just present and trying. William started crying, then great gasping sobs that shook his whole body. Daniel carefully removed the rifle, then the pistols, pushing them out of reach before pulling his friend into an embrace. I've got you, brother, he murmured. We're going to get through this. It took another hour to fully resolve the situation. Williams was taken to a psychiatric facility that specialized in veteran treatment, Harrison pulling strings to avoid criminal charges. Daniel gave statements to police, signed more papers, finally emerged to find Maya still waiting in the snow. Is he okay? She asked. He will be. Maybe. I hope. She drove him home in silence, understanding he needed time to process. At his house, Lily was asleep on the couch, Mrs. Chen knitting in the chair beside her. She insisted on waiting up for you, Mrs. Chen explained. Said you might need a hug when you got home. After the babysitter left, Daniel sat beside his sleeping daughter, overwhelmed by the simple peace of her presence. Maya sat on his other side, her hand finding his. You saved him, she said quietly. For now. Recovery isn't a one-time thing, it's daily, sometimes hourly. Like grief. Like everything worthwhile. Lily stirred, opening her eyes. Dad, you're home. I'm home, baby. She crawled into his lap, still half asleep. Did you help someone tonight? I tried. Then you did. You always help when you try. The next few days passed in preparation for the New Year's demonstration. Daniel and Maya choreographed their presentation carefully, balancing education with entertainment, reality with restraint. The event had sold out, 300 people coming to support the shelter. The night of the demonstration, Daniel stood backstage, hands steady, despite his nerves. This was different from teaching small classes. This was public, visible, permanent in the age of social media. You ready? Maya asked, stunning in her black demonstration uniform. As ready as I get for anything these days. She kissed him quickly. You're going to be amazing. They walked out to thunderous applause. The crowd was diverse students and their families, community members, local law enforcement. Daniel had trained even some of the FBI agents from his workshop. Lily sat in the front row between Maya's parents and Tyler's uncle, beaming with pride. Tonight, Maya began, we want to show you that self-defense isn't about fighting. It's about awareness prevention and, when necessary, controlled response to threat. They began with verbal de-escalation scenarios, Daniel playing aggressor, while Maya demonstrated how voice and posture could diffuse situations. Then they switched, showing that techniques worked regardless of gender. The best fight, Daniel told the audience, is the one that never happens. They moved through environmental awareness, escape techniques, basic strikes, and blocks. Finally, they demonstrated what real defensive combat looked like, fast, efficient, focused on escape rather than domination. The finale was a full-speed scenario, Maya walking through a simulated parking garage, while Daniel and 2 volunteers played potential threats. She navigated the space with tactical awareness, avoided one threat through positioning verbally, de-escalated another, and when the third attempted to grab her, she responded with precise violence that allowed her to escape. The crowd erupted in applause. But Daniel noticed something else, understanding on faces that had come expecting action movie choreography, and instead saw something real, practical, achievable. During the Q&A that followed, a woman raised her hand. Mr. Cross, how do we overcome the freeze response? When I was attacked last year, I couldn't move, couldn't scream. Daniel nodded, recognizing the trauma in her voice. Freezing is natural. It's one of 3 responses: fight, flight, or freeze. The key is training your body to have automatic responses that can break through the freeze. Simple things practiced until they're instinct. Like what? Like this. He demonstrated a simple hand movement that could break a wrist grab. Practice this 1,000 times, and your body will do it without your mind needing to engage. That breaks the freeze, creates space for other responses. More questions followed, parents asking about protecting children. Teenagers wanting to know about school situations, adults navigating workplace concerns. Daniel and Maya answered them all with patience and honesty, never promising more than techniques could deliver. After the event, as they helped clean up, Tyler approached with his uncle and surprisingly his mother. "Mr. Crossfire," Tyler's mother said, "I wanted to thank you. Tyler's told me everything you've done for him. He's like a different kid, confident, but not aggressive, strong, but not angry." "He did the work," Daniel said. "I just showed him the path." Still, she glanced at her son with obvious pride. "He wants to start teaching the younger kids if that's okay. Pass on what he's learned." Daniel looked at Tyler, saw the earnestness in his face. "We could use an assistant with the kids' classes. Minimum wage, but you'd be helping." Tyler's grin could have lit the entire dojo. "Really? Really, you've earned it." As the last people filed out, Daniel found himself alone in the dojo with Maya and Lily. The space felt different now, not just a training facility, but a community center, a place where transformation happened. "We did good tonight," Maya said, leaning against him. "We did." Lily yawned hugely. "Can we go home? I'm tired from being proud of you both." They laughed, gathering their things. As they walked out into the cold January night, Daniel felt something he hadn't experienced in years. Contentment. Not happiness exactly, that still felt too fragile, too dependent on external circumstances. But contentment, the sense of being where he was supposed to be doing what he was supposed to do. His phone buzzed. A text from Williams. "In treatment, it sucks, but I'm here. Thank you." Daniel showed it to Maya, who squeezed his hand. "You're building something here," she said. "Something that matters." "We're building it," he corrected. "Together." 3 weeks later, Daniel stood in front of another group of law enforcement officers teaching de-escalation techniques at Harrison's facility. The work had become routine now, but never easy. Each class brought new challenges, new perspectives on violence and its prevention. The goal, he told them, is to go home safe. Not to win, not to dominate, just to go home. Every technique I teach you should be measured against that standard. One officer, young and eager, raised his hand. "But what about protecting others?" "Sometimes we have to engage to protect civilians. Then you engage with precision, not emotion. You use the minimum force necessary to protect, then you stop. The badge doesn't give you the right to punish, that's the court's job. Your job is protection and apprehension, nothing more." After the session, Harrison pulled him aside. "You're good at this, really good. I want to expand your role. Have you developed a whole curriculum?" "I can't take on more hours," the dojo Lily. "I know. That's why I want to bring you on as a consultant for curriculum development. Work from home mostly, come in for specialized sessions. Better money, more flexibility." Daniel considered it. The offer made sense, would provide more stability while letting him maintain his other commitments. "Let me think about it." "Of course. But Daniel, you're making a difference here. These officers leave your sessions with a completely different perspective on force usage. That ripples out into communities, saves lives." That evening, Daniel arrived at the dojo to find unexpected visitors. Maria Rodriguez stood near the entrance with 2 children, a boy about Lily's age and a younger girl. "Maria," Daniel approached cautiously, unsure why she was there. "Daniel." Her smile was sad but genuine. "These are my children, Miguel and Sofia. I was hoping they could try a class." "Of course, but Miguel's been getting into fights at school. He's angry, has been since his father died. I thought maybe learning from someone who knew his dad might help." Daniel knelt down to Miguel's level. The boy had his father's eyes, dark and intense. Your dad was one of the bravest men I ever knew, Daniel said quietly. He saved lives, including mine. Then why didn't you save his... The words were sharp, accusatory, carrying years of grief. Because I couldn't. I tried, but sometimes trying isn't enough. That's the hardest lesson I've ever had to learn. Miguel stared at him for a long moment, then nodded slightly. Mom says you teach kids to fight. I teach them to protect themselves and others. Fighting is just one small part of that. Can you teach me to protect her? Miguel glanced at his sister. Dad's not here to do it anymore. Daniel's throat tightened. Yeah, I can teach you that. The kids joined the beginners class, Miguel watching everything with fierce concentration while Sophia laughed with the other young children already making friends. Maria sat with the other parents, but Daniel noticed her wiping away tears several times. After class, she approached him. Thank you. I know this can't be easy for you either. Your husband was my brother Maria. That makes your kids family. They're welcome here any time. That night, as Daniel tucked Lily into bed, she asked, Were you sad seeing Mr. Rodriguez's kids? Yeah, baby. Sad, but also glad. Glad they have a chance to learn to grow strong. Like I did after Mom died. Exactly like that. Dad, I love Maya. The statement came out of nowhere, simple and direct. Daniel sat on the edge of her bed, choosing his words carefully. I do too. Are you going to marry her? Would that be okay with you? Lily considered this seriously. Mom would want you to be happy. She told me that near the end. She said you'd be sad for a while, but eventually you'd find someone who made you smile again. Maya makes you smile. She does. Then yes, it's okay. More than okay. Daniel kissed her forehead, turned off the light. In the living room, his laptop sat open on the coffee table, Harrison's curriculum proposal on the screen. Beside it, his phone showed a text from Maya. Thinking about you. My parents loved you, by the way. Mom's already planning our wedding. Sorry in advance. He smiled, typing back, Your mom might be onto something. Her response was immediate. Daniel Cross, are you proposing via text? No. When I propose, you'll know it. But I'm saying it's not an impossibility. Good. Because I'd say yes. Daniel set the phone aside, looked around his small rental house. In a year, everything had changed. He'd gone from isolated survival to building something that resembled a life. Not the life he'd planned before Afghanistan, not the life he'd had with Sarah, but something new, something worthwhile. The photo Harrison had sent months ago still sat in his metal box, all those dead faces looking at the camera. But now it sat alongside other things. Lily's first yellow belt, the thank you cards from parents, a picture from the New Year's demonstration showing him and Maya mid-technique, perfectly synchronized. The ghosts were still there. They always would be. But they no longer defined the boundaries of his world. He'd found a way to honor them while still moving forward to use what they'd taught him in service of the living. His phone rang. Williams calling from the treatment center. Danny? I wanted you to know my kids visited today. First time in 3 months. It was awkward as hell, but they came. That's good, Jake. That's really good. I've got a long way to go. Doc says I might be here another 2 months, but after, Harrison says there might be work for me, teaching like you do. Think I could handle that. Daniel thought about Williams and that barricaded room rifle across his lap, ready to die rather than face another day. Then he thought about Tyler Marcus Miguel, all the kids who needed to learn that strength wasn't about violence, but about choice. Yeah, Jake, I think you could handle it. We all can if we remember why we're doing it. After the call, Daniel stepped onto his front porch. The winter night was clear stars visible despite the city lights. Somewhere across town, Maya was probably preparing tomorrow's lesson plans. At her uncle's house, Tyler was likely practicing forms, preparing to help teach. In their beds, dozens of kids slept better, knowing they had tools to protect themselves. It wasn't the life Daniel had planned, but it was the one he'd built from the pieces of what remained. And maybe that was enough. Maybe that was everything.